I was standing outside the lodge's planning room with my daughter's silver wrap folded over my arm when I heard the event planner ask, "And where would you like your mother seated for dinner?" There was a pause. Not a long one. Just long enough for me to wonder why the answer required thought. Then Rebecca laughed. "My mother is only here if something goes wrong." The planner said something too quietly for me to catch. I leaned closer without meaning to. "She likes being useful," Rebecca continued. "Trust me, she'd be miserable sitting through all that formal stuff." I looked down at the wrap. I had spent 20 minutes steaming it because Rebecca had held it up to the window and found one crease near the hem. The fabric was cool now, smooth as water. Neil was in that room with her. I knew because I had heard his voice a moment earlier. He could have said, "That's not true," or "Lorraine should be with us." He could have said my name. He said nothing. I wish I could tell you I opened the door and dropped that wrap in Rebecca's lap. I wish I had been the sort of woman who always knew the exact moment she'd been insulted enough. Instead, I stood there wondering whether the cake had been moved out of the sun. 2 days earlier, Rebecca had come down to my suite carrying a label maker and a cup of coffee she'd forgotten to drink. That was my daughter in a picture, a machine for labeling other people's belongings and cold coffee in her own hand. "Mom, are you awake?" "It's 9:30. "I know, but you said your hip was bothering you." "My hip and I have been up since 6. She entered without knocking, which made her question mostly decorative. Walter, the elderly beagle who technically belonged to Rebecca and Neil but had assigned himself to me, lifted his head from my rug. He gave her one slow thump of his tail, then went back to sleep. Rebecca wore black exercise clothes and gold earrings. She dressed that way when she wanted people to think she had just come from doing something athletic. I had never once seen her sweat in them. She set the label maker on my table beside the toast I was eating. "What's that for?" "The weekend." "I know it's not for canning peaches." She didn't smile. Rebecca had been 3 months deep in anniversary planning, and humor had become another variable she couldn't control. I thought we could label the emergency boxes by category: wardrobe, medical, weather, vendor supplies. What weather supplies? Ponchos, umbrellas, towels. "We're going to a lodge, Rebecca, not crossing the Oregon Trail. The ceremony is outside. Then the lodge has towels. Not enough matching ones." I took a bite of toast and let that sentence die naturally. The anniversary weekend had started as dinner for 20 people. Then Rebecca found the lodge online. It had cedar balconies, a stone terrace overlooking Lake Cresswell, and a website full of couples laughing into champagne glasses as if marriage were one long surprise party. Dinner became a 3-day event. There would be welcome drinks on Friday, a vow renewal and seated dinner on Saturday, then a farewell breakfast on Sunday. Rebecca hired a planner named Alyssa, a florist named Graham, and a photographer whose website showed no one with pores. She and Neil had been married 20 years. They had spent the first 10 loving each other, the next 7 building a life, and the last 3 discussing household repairs in voices that sounded like hostage negotiations. I believed they still loved each other. I also believed the anniversary had become Rebecca's way of demanding evidence. "Did you pack the little sewing kit?" she asked. "Yes." "The one with the gray thread?" "Yes." "Not just black and white?" "Rebecca." "Okay, sorry." She picked up her coffee, made a face at the temperature, and set it back down. I had lived in the downstairs suite for 3 years, ever since my husband Frank died. The first 6 months after the funeral had felt like walking around after someone moved all the furniture in the dark. I couldn't sleep in our bedroom. I couldn't cook for one without resenting the second pork chop. Rebecca suggested I stay with her and Neil temporarily. The suite had its own bathroom, a small sitting area, and French doors that opened onto the garden. Temporary became sensible. Sensible became permanent, without any of us announcing it. I paid them every month, though Rebecca called it helping with utilities, because rent made the arrangement sound too businesslike. I bought most of the groceries. I cooked 4 nights a week because Neil's idea of dinner was something wrapped in paper, and Rebecca could make a salad take an hour. No one had assigned me these jobs. That was important to Rebecca. She simply asked for each thing separately until my life became the answer. Neil left his cufflinks in the blue dish, she said. Would you mind grabbing them before we go? They're already in the garment bag. Her face softened. See, this is why I need you. Need was one of Rebecca's favorite words when she was speaking to me privately. In public, she preferred independent. She began feeding labels into the machine. It produced each one with an insect-like buzz: wardrobe, medical, weather. I watched her stick them to 3 plastic boxes I had packed the night before. Where's my label? I asked. She looked up. I should probably have one tied around my neck. Mother. Return to lower level if found. That got a laugh, though only a short one. You're terrible. I'm very useful in emergencies. You are. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I honestly don't know what I'd do without you this weekend. There it was again, that warmth that made everything else easy to excuse. Rebecca could turn affection on so quickly that I sometimes wondered whether I had imagined the moments when she went cold. She stood and looked around my suite. Is that what you're wearing Friday? She was looking at the navy dress hanging on the back of my bedroom door. I thought so. It's pretty. That meant no. What's wrong with it? Nothing. I just thought you were bringing the green pantsuit. The one you said made me look like a bank manager? I didn't say bank manager, I said regional bank manager. Oh, well, that changes everything. She laughed again, but her eyes stayed on the dress. Bring both, she said. We'll decide there. I should have asked who we meant. Instead, I told her I would. The next morning, Neil loaded the car while Rebecca walked behind him, rearranging everything. Neil was 50, broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, and capable of carrying 6 bags at once if no one cared what happened to the bags. Garment bag stays flat, Rebecca told him. It is flat, it's diagonal. Diagonal is a type of flat. She turned to me. Do you see what I'm dealing with? Neil caught my eye over the roof of the car. 20 years of this, Lorraine. Today we celebrate my survival. Rebecca slapped his arm and he pulled her into a hug. For a second, they looked like themselves again, not the polished couple from the anniversary invitations. She pressed her face into his chest, laughing, and he kissed the top of her head. That was how they surprised you. Just when you thought tenderness had left their house, it walked through the kitchen carrying car keys. I sat in the back with the boxes because Rebecca needed the passenger seat to make calls. Walter watched from the front window as we pulled away, his drooping face full of personal betrayal. Our neighbor Jan had agreed to care for him, although I had written out his feeding schedule and taped it to the refrigerator. The drive took 2 hours. Rebecca spent most of it switching between Alyssa, the florist, and her friend Marcy, who had decided that morning she could no longer eat onions. What happens to a person in her 40s that makes an onion suddenly dangerous? Neil asked after Rebecca hung up. It's not dangerous, Rebecca said. It causes inflammation. Of what? I didn't ask for a diagram, Neil. I leaned forward between their seats. Should I move the welcome dinner to the medical box? Neil laughed so hard he drifted toward the shoulder. Even Rebecca smiled. Both of you are impossible. The lodge appeared beyond a line of pines, all dark timber and bright windows. The lake behind it flashed silver through the trees. It was beautiful, I'll give her that. Beautiful in a way that made you lower your voice when you got out of the car. Alyssa met us beneath the covered entrance. She was younger than I expected, with curly dark hair, sensible shoes, and a clipboard hugged against her chest. You must be Rebecca. She shook my daughter's hand, then Neil's. And happy anniversary. Rebecca's whole body changed, her shoulders lowered, her voice became breezy. We're so excited, everything looks amazing. Alyssa turned to me. And you're Lorraine? Yes, thank goodness. She said it warmly, but I noticed she didn't say, Happy anniversary weekend, or You must be Rebecca's mother. She said it the way a person greets a toolbox that has finally arrived. Rebecca pointed toward our luggage. Mom has the emergency supplies. She knows where everything is. I also have underwear and a toothbrush, I said. I'm hoping for a balanced weekend. Alyssa laughed. Rebecca was already asking about the terrace. A bellman took Rebecca and Neil's bags upstairs. I reached for mine, but Alyssa stopped me. I can have someone bring that to the courtyard room. The courtyard room? Rebecca turned back as if she had forgotten I was standing there. It's really cute, Mom. First floor, private entrance. I thought that would be easier for you. Easier for my hip, I assumed. I had mentioned it aching once, and Rebecca had converted me into a medical condition. The courtyard room was at the end of a hallway past the kitchen doors. It was clean and comfortable, with a narrow bed and a view of 2 recycling bins. When the kitchen door swung open, I could hear dishes clattering and someone swearing at a refrigerator. Rebecca stood in the doorway while I set my purse down. You like it? It's convenient. I knew you would. And you won't have to deal with the stairs. She kissed my cheek, already looking at her phone. Could you come up when you're settled? My garment bag isn't in the suite. I watched them put it on the cart. Well, it's not there. That was the first thing that went wrong. By the time I found the garment bag hanging in a conference room closet, the florist had arrived with the wrong number of table arrangements. Marcy wanted written confirmation about the onions, and Neil had misplaced the envelope containing his handwritten vows. I found that too. It was in his jacket pocket. At 6 o'clock, Rebecca appeared in my doorway, wearing one shoe and holding the silver wrap. It's wrinkled, she said. Near the hem was a crease no longer than my little finger. The guests will be here in 40 minutes. I took the wrap from her. I'll handle it. Her whole face relaxed. I knew you would. I hung the wrap from the shower rod and turned the water as hot as it would go. Steam filled the bathroom while I smoothed the fabric with my hands. The lodge had an iron, but the sole plate was rusty. I knew that because I checked it before using it, which was the sort of thing Rebecca meant when she said I liked being useful. A person can confuse vigilance with pleasure if she benefits from it long enough. When the crease finally disappeared, I carried the wrap toward the planning room. The terrace doors stood open at the other end of the hall, letting in music, pine-scented air, and the sound of Rebecca laughing at something Graham the florist had said. I heard Alyssa ask about seating. Then I heard my daughter explain why I was there. The wrap almost slipped from my arm. I caught it before it touched the floor. What I remember most is not the sentence itself. It's the silence after it. Alyssa's, because she didn't know what she was allowed to say. Neil's, because he did. I waited for him. Even after Rebecca moved on to the portrait schedule, I waited. We can do couples first, she said, then our close group with Marcy and Paul, and maybe one with the college crowd. Alyssa's voice was careful. No family grouping? Neil's sister won't get in until dinner. We can grab something informal later. We should probably build it into the schedule if it's important. It's not that kind of weekend. I looked at the closed door and wondered what kind of weekend included a woman's mother only after something caught fire. Footsteps approached from inside. I moved down the hall and pretended to examine a framed photograph of the lake. The photograph was black and white, which struck me as unfair to the lake. The door opened behind me. Neil came out first. He saw the silver fabric over my arm, then looked at my face. Hey, he said. Just that, hey. Rebecca's wrap, I said. Right. We stood there like two people who had met beside a stalled elevator. He pushed his hands into his pockets. Everything okay? It was almost impressive. The man had sat through what I had just heard, and somehow the burden of honesty had arrived at my feet. Is Rebecca on the terrace? Yeah, I held out the wrap. He hesitated before taking it. Lorraine, a guest is about to wear white linen near red wine. You'd better get that to her. He gave me the sad, worried look decent men use when they're hoping decency of expression will substitute for action. Then he carried the wrap away. Alyssa came out with her clipboard pressed against her chest. She stopped when she saw me. I can change the seating, she said quietly. That answered the question of whether she knew I had heard. I thought seating was Rebecca's decision. It is, but sometimes clients get focused on a picture in their head. Once the weekend starts, they relax. Does Rebecca often relax after a plan starts? Alyssa's mouth twitched, but she controlled it. I can put a chair at the family table. Would you tell her? I'd have to. Then you're not putting a chair anywhere. She shifted her weight. Mrs. Hayes, Lorraine. I'm sorry. You didn't say it. No, but I asked the question in a room where you could hear the answer. That was more responsibility than either of the people who loved me had taken, and Alyssa barely knew me. From the kitchen came a crash, followed by a man shouting, "It's fine!" Alyssa closed her eyes. That sounded expensive, I said. It was probably ice. Then why did he say it was fine? She gave in and laughed. Her radio crackled. Someone said the anniversary cake had been left beside the west windows, where the late sun was hitting the boxes. I was moving before Alyssa finished answering. The cake was 3 tiers of lemon and blackberry with sugar flowers climbing one side. Rebecca had shown me a picture of it 11 times. 2 kitchen employees helped me roll the table away from the windows, and I found a cooler spot in the adjoining pantry. I checked the boxes for warmth, made sure the table was level, and left a note that the cake should not be moved without Alyssa. Only then did I realize I had responded exactly as trained. Something had gone wrong, and there I was. Guests began arriving at 7. The terrace filled with linen jackets, summer dresses, and the slippery kisses of people trying not to smudge each other's makeup. Rebecca stood near the entrance in dark blue, the silver wrap around her shoulders. From a distance, she looked happy, not her photograph smile, which showed every tooth, but the smaller one she used when Neil leaned close and said something meant only for her. I stayed near the back with a glass of sparkling water. Marcy found me beside a planner. She was a narrow woman with bright red glasses and the determined cheerfulness of somebody who considered quiet a medical emergency. Lorraine, our emergency commander. Apparently I had received a title after all. She hugged me, then held me at arm's length. You look lovely. Rebecca said you might not come out tonight. Did she? She said crowds wear you out. They do if everyone asks me where the safety pins are. Marcy laughed as if I were joking. Speaking of emergencies, do you know whether those little tart things have onions? I'm off onion duty. Oh, she blinked. Of course. I left her squinting suspiciously at a tray. The evening moved around me. I spoke to people I knew, but every conversation seemed to end with someone asking where Rebecca had put something. Neil's sister Denise wanted the room keys. Paul couldn't find the gift table. Graham needed to know whether the flowers in the lobby were supposed to be moved after dinner. I answered the first 2. On the third, I pointed to Alyssa. It was a small refusal. Graham didn't even notice. Still, my heart beat faster afterward. Rebecca did. She appeared beside me while Graham was walking away. Did he need something? He needed the planner. You knew what he was asking about. So did the planner. Her eyes searched my face. Are you upset? Behind her, Neil was telling a story to 3 friends. He glanced toward us, then away. No, I said. It came out too quickly. Rebecca lowered her voice. Is it the room? Because I asked for first floor specifically. The room is fine. Then what? A server passed with champagne. Rebecca exchanged my untouched sparkling water for a full glass without asking. Have some fun, she said. You're acting like you're working. For one dangerous second, I thought I might laugh in her face. Instead, I took the champagne. The photographer gathered people near the terrace railing as the sun lowered over the lake. Rebecca and Neil stood in the center. Marcy and Paul joined them, then Denise and her husband. A few old friends crowded around. I was speaking with Alyssa when the photographer lifted one hand toward me. Could I have everyone clear the background, please? I moved. Alyssa did not. She stayed beside me as the shutter clicked. Rebecca looked radiant. Neil's hand rested at her waist. The lake behind them was copper and gold, and everyone in the picture was laughing. "There'll be other photographs," Alyssa said. "I know. You could go stand with them and make the photographer ask who invited the help?" Her face tightened. "He doesn't know who you are. That's not his fault." Rebecca caught my eye after the picture. For a moment, I thought she would call me over. "Mom," she said, waving. I stepped forward. "Can you grab my flats?" "They're in the bedroom beside Neil's suitcase." People moved aside to let me through. I took the elevator upstairs. Rebecca's suite overlooked the lake. The silver sandals she wanted were beside the bed, not the suitcase, and one of the straps had already worked loose. I sat in a velvet chair and repaired it with the tiny screwdriver from the wardrobe box. On the desk lay a printed copy of the weekend schedule. Friday ended with private hospitality review at 10:30. Saturday began with breakfast for the wedding party and close friends. The vow renewal was at 5, cocktails at 6, seated dinner at 7. Beside each item were names and assignments. My name appeared 6 times. Lorraine. Confirm breakfast coffee service. Lorraine. Keep Neil away from terrace during floral reset. Lorraine. Hold Rebecca's personal items during photographs. Lorraine. Cue recorded message from absent friends. My name did not appear beside dinner. I turned to the seating chart. 38 names were arranged across 5 tables. Rebecca and Neil were in the center with Marcy, Paul, Denise, and 3 couples from their college years. There was no Lorraine Hayes, no mom, no extra chair waiting to be assigned. I repaired the second shoe even though nothing was wrong with it. When I returned to the terrace, Rebecca slipped out of her sandals without interrupting her conversation. She handed me the silver pair and stepped into the flats I had fixed. "Perfect," she said. Then she turned back to Marcy. I carried the silver shoes to my room. At 10:30, music was still drifting through the courtyard. I changed into my nightgown, washed my face, and sat on the edge of the narrow bed with my phone. Jan answered on the second ring. "How's Walter?" "Mad at the Republic. He's been sitting by your door. Did he eat?" He inhaled dinner, then resumed his protest. I could hear her television in the background. "Jan, would you mind keeping him until tomorrow afternoon? I thought you were coming back Sunday." "So did I." The television went quiet. What happened? Nothing went wrong. She waited. Jan and I had known each other for 11 years. She understood that my most careful answers were usually the least truthful. "What did Rebecca do?" she asked. I rubbed my thumb along the seam of the bedspread. "She told the planner I'm only here in case something goes wrong." Jan was silent for a moment. "Are you at the dinner?" "There's a seat for everyone except the woman confirming the coffee." "That wasn't my question." "No, come home." The answer was so immediate that it frightened me. "I can't just leave." "Why not? They're 2 hours away. There are boxes, schedules. Neil's sister doesn't know where anything is." "Is Neil's sister a grown woman?" "Last time I checked." "Then let her enjoy the adventure." I looked toward the emergency boxes lined beneath the window. Rebecca's labels shone in the light from the courtyard. "I'll call you in the morning," I said. After we hung up, I found a bus leaving Lake Cresswell at 11:15. The lodge shuttle could take me to the station at 10:30. I entered my information, but stopped before paying. For nearly 20 minutes, I sat with my finger above the button, thinking of every possible inconvenience my leaving might cause. Then I thought of the photograph on the terrace. Everyone laughing. Me moving out of the frame before anyone had to ask twice. I bought the ticket. At 7 the next morning, Rebecca knocked once and entered carrying one of my labeled boxes. "Why is the medical kit down here?" she asked. "Alyssa needs it upstairs." I was dressed. My suitcase stood beside the bed. Rebecca looked at it, then at me. "Where are you going?" "Home." "What do you mean, home?" The question landed harder than she intended. I took the box from her hands and set it on the dresser. "I mean the place downstairs in your house where you put me when nothing's wrong." Rebecca stared at me as if I had spoken in another language. "Nothing is wrong with your room. I didn't say there was." "Then why are you talking like that?" "Because I heard you yesterday." Her face changed in stages. First confusion, then recognition, then the quick calculation of how much I might have heard. Heard what? The planner asked where I'd be seated. Rebecca looked toward the open door. Can we not do this with people walking by? There's no one walking by. That's not the point. She stepped inside and shut the door. The kitchen had already started breakfast service. Through the wall came the low thud of cupboard doors and silverware being poured into bins. Mom, that was a planning conversation. Yes, things sound different when they're taken out of context. You said I was only here if something went wrong. What context improves that? I was trying to explain the arrangement. What arrangement? That you weren't attending every formal event. It was the first I had heard of any arrangement, but she said it with enough confidence to make me check my own memory. I was invited to this weekend. Of course you were invited. Where's my seat tonight? She folded her arms. The dinner is very small. 38 people. It was supposed to be 30. The numbers kept changing. Where's my seat? We can add one. That wasn't the question. Rebecca looked down at my suitcase. If this is about a chair, we can fix the chair. It's not about furniture. Then what do you want me to say? The exhaustion in her voice was real. That was what made Rebecca difficult to fight with. She could hurt you and still seem like the more burdened person in the room. I want to know why you brought me here. You know why. You're my mother. Your planner thought I was staff. I never said you were staff. You gave her my name besides 6 jobs. That's because you offered to help. I offered to pack an emergency box. Exactly. No, Rebecca. Not exactly. She pushed both hands into her hair and paced 2 steps toward the window. There wasn't room for a third. This weekend has cost us a fortune. I've spent months trying to make it nice for everyone, and now, on the morning of the ceremony, you're telling me I'm a terrible daughter because I asked for help. I didn't call you terrible. You didn't have to. Someone knocked. Rebecca opened the door before I could answer. Neil stood in the hall wearing jeans and a white undershirt. His dress shirt hung over one shoulder. There you are, he said to Rebecca. Alyssa needs a decision about, he saw my suitcase. What's going on? Mom is leaving. Neil looked at me. Why? Rebecca answered before I could. She overheard part of our conversation yesterday and completely misunderstood it. I heard the whole part about me. His eyes dropped to the carpet. Rebecca turned toward him. Tell her. He adjusted the shirt on his shoulder. Tell her what? That we weren't excluding her. He rubbed the back of his neck. Neil. I think maybe we should slow down. That was Neil's phrase whenever a conversation reached the point where truth might require a side. I looked at him. Did you hear Rebecca tell Alyssa I was only here if something went wrong? He exhaled through his nose. I heard it. And did you think she meant something else? No. Rebecca's head snapped toward him. That's not fair. You asked me what I heard. I asked you to explain the context. The context was seating. It was logistics. People are logistics now? I didn't say that. They had almost forgotten me. They were slipping into the old rhythm of their marriage, Rebecca prosecuting and Neil retreating until both of them could blame the conversation instead of its subject. I picked up my handbag. Rebecca noticed the movement. Mom, stop, please, just sit down. I have a bus at 11:15. A bus? The shuttle will take me to the station. You already bought a ticket? Yes. When? Last night. Her face went still. So you've been planning this? Since I saw the seating chart? You went through our papers. They were on the desk beside the shoes I repaired. I didn't ask you to repair my shoes. One of the kitchen workers dropped another tray behind the wall. The crash was followed by that same man saying, Still fine. Neil sat on the edge of the bed. Rebecca looked from him to me. I said we could add a chair. What else am I supposed to do? Let me go home. You can't leave on the day of the ceremony. Watch me. Don't be childish. Neil closed his eyes. The word hung there between us. Rebecca heard it after she said it. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. It came out clearly. You know I want you here. What was I supposed to wear to dinner? She blinked. You had an opinion about the navy dress. You told me to bring the green pantsuit. Which one was I supposed to wear tonight? Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. That silence answered more than the one outside the planning room had. Neil stared at the floor. Rebecca turned away from both of us. I thought you'd be more comfortable resting after the ceremony. Did you? You complain about your hip. I mentioned my hip once. You mention it all the time. When? I don't keep a transcript, Mom. Then give me an example. This is ridiculous. No, ridiculous is packing 2 formal outfits for a dinner where I don't have a chair. She spun back toward me. Fine. I handled it badly. Is that what you need? I handled it badly. But leaving now is deliberately cruel. I'm not stopping your anniversary. You know how much I'm counting on you. For what? Everything. The word came out so loudly that someone in the hall slowed down, then kept walking. Rebecca's eyes filled. She looked furious about it. I can't watch every vendor, she said. I can't keep track of Neil and the flowers and the schedule and 38 people's food problems. You said you wanted to help me, and you decided that helping was the only reason I should be here. That is not what I said. It's exactly what you said. Oh, please stop quoting me like I made a public statement. I was stressed. I was talking to the person we hired to manage this. You listened at a door, decided on the ugliest possible meaning, and now you're choosing the worst moment to become sensitive. Neil stood up. Rebecca. No. She does this. Whenever emotions get complicated, she makes everyone manage her. I felt the sentence land in an old place. Frank used to tell me I swallowed hurt until it poisoned the room. Rebecca had inherited his impatience with silence, but not his ability to recognize what came before it. There had been times when I said I was fine and expected people to understand I wasn't. Times when I cleaned the kitchen too loudly or let a cupboard door close harder than necessary. Maybe my daughter remembered all of them. For a few seconds, I could see myself staying. I could unpack, carry the boxes upstairs, put on the green suit, and stand somewhere outside the photographs. By Monday, Rebecca would be affectionate again. She would bring me coffee and call me her lifesaver. I would tell myself her words came from stress. A whole life can disappear inside explanations like that. I'm not asking either of you to manage me, I said. I bought my own ticket. Rebecca wiped beneath one eye with the side of her finger. You're really going to make me explain why my mother walked out. Tell people I went home. They'll ask why. You can decide how honest you want to be. She picked up the medical box and held it against her body. You packed half the things we need. I'll give Alyssa a list. You know where everything is. The labels are on top. That's not funny. I wasn't joking. I reached for the box, but she tightened her grip. For one strange moment, we stood there with our hands on opposite sides of it, each waiting for the other to let go. Then Neil took it from both of us. I'll bring these upstairs, he said. Rebecca looked at him with open betrayal. That's it? I don't know what you want me to do. Ask her to stay. He turned to me. Would asking change your mind? No. He nodded once. At least it was an honest answer. Alyssa arrived at 9 with coffee, a revised rain plan, and the guarded expression of someone approaching a room where a couple had been heard arguing. Rebecca had left to meet the florist. Neil was supposed to be dressing, though he was still wandering the lodge in his undershirt. I showed Alyssa the boxes. The pain relievers, bandages, and stomach medicine are in medical. The stain remover and tape are in wardrobe. The recorded message is on this drive. I placed the small blue drive in her palm. Neil's vows are in the inside pocket of his navy jacket, not the tuxedo jacket, the other one. Alyssa closed her fingers around the drive. I can handle it. I know. You don't need to give me your whole brain before you leave. That almost undid me. I busied myself zipping my suitcase. The cake was moved to the pantry yesterday. The table is level, but the room gets warm when the kitchen ovens are on. I'll check it. And Marcy can eat the mushroom tarts, but not the onion ones. I may let Marcy discover consequences. I looked at her. She smiled. I'm joking. Mostly. The shuttle driver arrived at 10:20. He loaded my suitcase while I stood beneath the covered entrance where Alyssa had greeted us the day before. Neil came down alone. "Rebecca won't come out," he said. "I didn't expect her to. She's upset. So am I. I know." He shoved his hands into his pockets, the same way he had outside the planning room. "I should have said something yesterday." "Yes, I didn't know you were there." I looked at him until he hurt himself. He winced. "That sounded bad. It sounded honest. What I mean is, I thought she was just talking. Rebecca says things when she's stressed, and everyone waits for her to become unstressed so her words don't count. That isn't—" He stopped. "Maybe." He looked older than he had the day before. Not dramatically. Just enough that I could see the 20 years they were celebrating had taken 20 years to live. "Will you answer if I call?" he asked. "Are you calling to talk to me or to ask where something is?" His mouth pulled sideways. "I guess I'll find out." The shuttle door folded open. As we pulled away, I looked up at the lodge windows. Rebecca stood behind the glass in their suite, still wearing her robe. For one hopeful second, I thought she might lift her hand. She closed the curtain. My phone rang before the shuttle reached the main road. "Rebecca." I let it ring. She called again at the station, twice while I waited for the bus, and once after I took my seat. Then came a message. "The weather app says the rain is moving in earlier. Where did you put the ponchos?" I pictured the box on the floor of my room, the word weather printed across the lid in Rebecca's own careful label. I turned my phone face down. 10 minutes later, it rang again. This time I answered. "What?" I said. There was music behind her, voices, a door slamming. "The cake is leaning," Rebecca said. "Call your planner. Mom, please. I'm not there as staff." I ended the call before she could answer. My hands shook so badly I had to tuck them beneath my legs. The bus pulled away from Lake Cresswell under a sky the color of wet cement. I watched the pines slide past and tried not to think about sugar flowers, loose straps, rain plans, or whether the pantry floor was level. For the first time in years, something was going wrong without me. It felt nothing like freedom. Mostly, it felt like nausea. At every stop, I expected the driver to announce that the bus was turning around because a 68-year-old woman had failed to supervise a cake. My phone stayed face down on the empty seat beside me, but each vibration traveled through the vinyl and into my bones. I checked it outside Bellwether. 4 missed calls from Rebecca, 2 from Neil, 1 from Alyssa. The messages began with practical questions. Is the blue drive labeled? Do you remember where my backup earrings are? Alyssa says you moved the cake. Which pantry? Then they changed. I cannot believe you hung up on me. People are asking where you are. Please do not make me spend my ceremony explaining this. Neil's message was shorter. Cake handled. Are you okay? Alyssa had written only, "Everything is under control here. Safe trip home." That sentence should have comforted me. Instead, it made me cry. I cried quietly, which was another skill acquired through repetition. The man across the aisle pretended to be deeply interested in the emergency exit instructions. I wiped my face with a napkin left over from the station coffee and typed a response to Neil. "I'm fine. Tell Alyssa the drive is labeled and the earrings are in the zip pocket of the cosmetic case." I stared at the second half, then erased it. "I'm fine. I'll let you know when I'm home." The bus arrived 20 minutes late. Jan was waiting at the curb in her little red car with Walter sitting upright in the passenger seat like a disappointed magistrate. She rolled down the window. He refused to stay home. Walter began making a sound halfway between a howl and an accusation. "I'm sorry," I told him as I opened the door. He climbed across the console before I could sit down. His nails dug into my legs, his tail struck the dashboard, and he shoved his nose beneath my chin with enough force to close my teeth. "Apparently he thought you'd joined another family," Jan said. "At least somebody noticed I left." She gave me a look but didn't answer. Jan believed every emotional crisis deserved 10 quiet minutes before commentary. It was one of her better qualities and had saved us from several arguments. I sat in the back with Walter draped across my lap. He smelled like grass and the salmon treats Jan bought, even though I had asked her not to. "You came all the way to the station," I said. "I had nothing else to do. You have a car full of potting soil." I said nothing else, not nothing strange. She drove me home without asking for the lodge details. When we turned onto our street, I saw Rebecca and Neil's house at the far end, pale brick behind 2 old maples. Home, I had called it. Yet the closer we got, the more it looked like a place I was returning to before the owners. Jan parked in the driveway. "You want me to come in? I can manage my own front door." That wasn't the question. "I know." I put my hand over hers. "Thank you." She squeezed back. "Text me if you start baking." "Why?" "You bake when you're trying not to say something. Last time you were angry at Rebecca. You made 4 loaves of banana bread. The bananas were going bad. Lorraine, you bought more bananas." Walter followed me through the garden entrance. The suite was exactly as I had left it, except the morning light had shifted across the rug. My coffee cup sat in the sink. One slipper was beneath the chair. Rebecca's label maker was still on the table. I picked it up and set it on the stairs leading to the main part of the house. Then I carried my suitcase to the bedroom. The navy dress came out first. It was creased from the trip, though not badly. I hung it on the closet door beside the green pantsuit and stood looking at both outfits, trying to imagine the version of myself who had packed them. Walter circled twice on the rug and collapsed with a groan. "You've had a difficult weekend," I told him. He sighed. "So have I." At 5, when the ceremony was supposed to begin, rain tapped against the French doors. I made tea and sat near the window. The storm was gentle where I was, but Lake Cresswell lay northwest beneath a darker strip of sky. I pictured Rebecca watching the terrace disappear underwater. I pictured the florist carrying arrangements indoors, Alyssa revising the schedule, Neil asking where he had put his vows even though I had told everyone twice. My hand moved toward the phone. I stopped it. At 5:13, Alyssa sent a photograph. Rows of chairs had been arranged in front of the lodge's stone fireplace. The flower arch stood behind them, fuller and brighter indoors. Graham had scattered candles along the mantel. The room looked warm, intimate, almost accidental. "Rain plan," Alyssa wrote. "She's walking in now." I enlarged the picture. Rebecca was not visible, only the guests turning toward the back of the room. My absence was somewhere among them, an empty chair nobody had planned for. I typed, "It looks beautiful." Alyssa answered, "It is." Nothing else went wrong loudly enough to reach me. The cake did not collapse. The power did not fail. No one choked on an onion. Around 8, Neil sent a picture of the repaired cake. One side leaned slightly, but the sugar flowers had been rearranged to hide it. "Engineering by buttercream," he wrote. I almost replied that the pantry was too warm. Instead, I sent a thumbs up, then hated myself for choosing it. It looked cold. I added, "I'm glad you saved it." He responded with a photograph of his plate. The piece of cake had fallen sideways. Saved is a generous term. That made me laugh despite myself. Rebecca sent nothing. I slept badly and woke to Walter scratching at my door. For several seconds, I didn't know where I was. Then I saw the green pantsuit hanging in the gray light. Upstairs, the refrigerator hummed in an empty kitchen. I let Walter into the yard and put on coffee automatically. I measured enough for 3 people. When the machine began dripping, I stared at the pot. Rebecca liked 1 cup before speaking to anyone. Neil took his in the tall blue mug, too much milk, no sugar. If they had been home, I would have poured both without asking. Small kindnesses, repeated often enough, become household law. I poured my own cup and turned off the machine. Their car came into the driveway shortly after 2. I heard doors close, the trunk open, and Rebecca say, "Not that bag, Neil." The other one. Walter rushed upstairs. I stayed where I was. A few minutes later, footsteps crossed the kitchen. The door at the top of my stairs opened. "Mom?" Rebecca came down in leggings and a cream sweater, her hair twisted into a loose knot. She looked tired, beautiful, but tired. There were silver flakes near her scalp from whatever the stylist had used the night before. Walter followed her, pleased that the Republic had been restored. "You made it back," I said. She stopped 2 steps from the bottom, obviously. "How was the drive?" "Long." I waited. She waited better. Neil appeared behind her carrying my medical box and the label maker. "This yours?" he asked. "The label maker is Rebecca's." He glanced at it. "That explains why our phone chargers have names now." Rebecca didn't smile. Neil brought the box down and set it near my table. He looked around the suite as if checking for damage. "The ceremony was nice," he said. "I saw the picture. You talked to Alyssa?" "She sent one." Rebecca's jaw tightened. "She was very concerned about you. I'm sorry she had to be. She said you gave her a complete handoff before you left." "I did. You made it sound like you were quitting a job." Neil rubbed Walter's ears. I said, "Did everything work out?" "The ceremony was moved inside," he said. "It was actually better. Everybody could hear. The cake looked drunk, but it tasted fine." "Neil." "What?" "It did." Rebecca looked at him until he stopped touching the dog. "People asked where you were," she said to me. "What did you tell them?" "That your hip was bothering you and you decided to go home." I absorbed that. "You could have told them the truth. At my anniversary dinner, you didn't have to announce it. You could have said I went home. And let them wonder?" "Wonder what?" "Why my own mother would leave hours before my ceremony. Because you didn't give her a seat occurred to all 3 of us. No one said it." Rebecca folded her arms. Marcy could tell something happened. Denise, too. I spent the entire morning trying to keep everyone from asking questions. Did they stop asking after the ceremony? That's not the point. "Did you enjoy any of it?" She looked startled. "The ceremony, Rebecca. Did you enjoy it?" Her arms loosened slightly. "Some of it." "Which part?" She glanced at Neil. He answered for her. "We changed the vows." "You did?" Mine sounded like they'd been written by a bank. "They did not," Rebecca said. "They had 3 numbered commitments. You told me you liked them. I was afraid there'd be a 4th. A reluctant smile touched her mouth. Neil leaned against the wall. We put the papers away. Just talked. Rebecca looked down, remembering. For a few seconds, the anger left her face. "It was good," she said. "I'm glad." She looked at me again, and the anger returned, because gladness from me required something she wasn't ready to give. "It would have been better if you were there, at the ceremony or working. Why do you have to do that? Do what? Turn every word around until I'm wrong." I asked a question. "No, you set a trap." Neil straightened. "Maybe we should unpack." "Go ahead," she said. He looked at me, then at her. "I meant all of us should take a minute. I've had an entire day to take a minute." She turned toward the stairs. At the second step, she stopped. "Sunday dinner is still happening, right?" I thought I had misheard. "What dinner?" "Our dinner. It's Sunday. Every week I cooked. Sometimes roast chicken, sometimes pasta, sometimes whatever needed to be used before it went bad. No one called it an arrangement. Sunday simply arrived, and I fed them. I haven't planned anything. We have food upstairs, then you should be fine." Rebecca gripped the railing. "I was asking if you wanted to eat with us." "No." "You were asking if I was cooking." "That is not what I meant." "Then say what you mean." She went upstairs without answering. Neil stayed behind. "You hungry?" he asked. "I can make myself a sandwich. I make a respectable omelet. You burn eggs. Respectable is a flexible standard." I almost said yes. That was the danger of Neil. He could soften any moment until nobody remembered what had cut them. "Go unpack," I told him. He nodded and followed Rebecca. Over the next few days, silence settled into the house without ever becoming complete. Doors opened and closed above me. Walter moved between floors according to whoever had food. Rebecca left early and returned late. Neil knocked twice to offer coffee, and both times I accepted because refusing every kindness would have turned my boundary into theater. Wednesday morning, I found a grocery list on my table. Chicken breasts, lemons, coffee, Walter's joint tablets. At the bottom, Rebecca had written, "Please," as if manners were the missing ingredient. I carried the list upstairs and left it beside her purse. That afternoon, she came into my suite without knocking and dropped a basket of clean towels onto the chair. "Those are yours," she said. "Thank you." She noticed the papers spread across my table. "What are you doing?" I placed my hand over the page I had been reading, though there was no reason to hide it. Jan had brought me 3 apartment listings after lunch. One had a small balcony. Another allowed dogs. The third was above a pharmacy and cost more than I wanted to spend. Rebecca stepped closer. "Are those rentals?" "Yes." Her eyes lifted to mine. "I'm looking for a place to live." Rebecca looked at the listings again, as if the right angle might reveal a joke. "You already have a place to live. I have rooms in your house. You have an entire suite. With a private entrance near the recycling bins?" "That was the lodge." "I know." She picked up the listing with the balcony. "Is this because of the anniversary?" "It's because of a lot of things I didn't understand until the anniversary. So yes, I'm not trying to punish you. You're moving out of my house because of one sentence. 1 sentence and 38 chairs." Her lips pressed together. "We apologized for the chair." "No. You said one could be added after I found out I wasn't supposed to have one." "Fine. We handled that badly. But you don't move because somebody handled a seating chart badly. I'm not somebody. You're not somebody." She dropped the listing onto the table. "What does that mean?" "It means we're mother and daughter. It should matter more when we handle each other badly." For a moment, she looked less angry than afraid. Then she noticed Jan's handwriting circling the rent on one page. This was Jan's idea. "No, she brought these over." After I asked her, "Jan has always thought you do too much for us, maybe because I complained to her." Rebecca's face hardened. "So you discuss me with the neighbors. I discuss my life with my friend, including my marriage. I don't know enough about your marriage to discuss it. You tell me the dishwasher is making a sound and Neil forgot to buy limes." She turned toward the stairs, then back. "Do you have any idea how this looks?" "To whom?" "To everyone. That question has been getting you into trouble lately." She let out a sharp breath. "I opened my home to you. There it was. Not often. Never in front of me before, but I had heard Rebecca say it to friends, always gently, as though she were protecting my dignity. After Dad died, Mom came to stay with us. It was the best thing for her. We didn't want her alone. I looked around the suite. The sofa and table were mine. So were the curtains, the lamp, the rug, and the framed photograph of Frank squinting into the sun on our last trip to Maine. "You did," I said, "and I'm grateful." She seemed disappointed that gratitude did not end the conversation. "I don't understand you. I'm trying to understand myself." That sounds like something Jan would say. Jan says things with more swearing. Neil called from upstairs, asking where the dog's leash was. Rebecca closed her eyes. "See," she said, "this is what my week has been like. The leash is hanging beside the back door." She pointed at me as if I had proved her case. I almost laughed. Instead, I folded the listings and returned them to the table. "I'm going to look at apartments. If I find one, I'll give you plenty of notice." "How much notice?" 6 weeks. Her expression shifted again. 6 weeks sounded real. It contained a moving truck, empty rooms, and a date on a calendar. "You've decided. I've decided to look. That's the same thing when you say it." She went upstairs. This time, she shut the door at the top hard enough to rattle the glass in my French doors. The first apartment Jan took me to smelled like vanilla air freshener over fried fish. The manager kept calling the bedroom cozy, although a person could touch both walls without straightening her elbows. "You could use a smaller bed," Jan said. "I could sleep standing up." The manager laughed too enthusiastically. The second place had good light. cheap rent, and 3 flights of stairs. The leasing agent told me the stairs were great built-in exercise. "Does the rent include a cardiologist?" I asked. Jan led me out before I could become less charming. The 3rd building sat across town on a quiet street lined with sycamores. It was called Willow Court, though there were no willows and the courtyard was mostly concrete. The lobby had green carpet, 2 armchairs, and a bulletin board advertising bridge night, chair yoga, and a missing casserole dish. The manager, a woman named Donna, wore purple glasses on a chain around her neck. She did not call anything cozy. "The kitchen is small," she said as she unlocked the apartment. "The bathroom was updated 4 years ago, and the windows were replaced last winter. The elevator breaks about twice a year. We fix it." "I appreciate the confession," I said. "I find disappointment gets worse when you decorate it." Jan touched my elbow. "I like her." The apartment was on the 4th floor. It had 1 bedroom, a narrow living room, and a balcony barely wide enough for 2 chairs. From it, I could see the tops of the sycamores and the roof of the pharmacy next door. The kitchen counters were beige laminate. The refrigerator hummed louder than it should have. 1 cabinet door hung slightly crooked. I loved it. Not in the way I had loved the house Frank and I shared for 32 years. That love had grown around scraped floors, burned dinners, arguments, Christmas mornings, and the pencil marks where we measured furniture before rearranging it. This was smaller, more cautious. I could imagine being alone there without feeling hidden. "Dogs are allowed," Donna said. "There's an extra deposit." I pictured Walter in the elevator, suspicious of everyone. Then I pictured his stiff legs, the 4th floor hallway, and the garden at Rebecca's house, where he had buried 3 toys and half a dinner roll. "He isn't mine," I said. Jan glanced at me but stayed quiet. Donna showed us the laundry room and the storage lockers. Back in the lobby, she handed me an application. "There's another person seeing it Friday." "Of course there is," Jan said. "There's always another person. There actually is. That's what makes it effective." Donna looked at me. "Your friend is exhausting. You get used to her." Outside, Jan waited until we reached the car. "You want it. I can't afford to want things immediately. You can afford it. It's nearly twice what I give Rebecca, and utilities aren't included. You have savings. Savings are supposed to be saved. For what?" I opened the passenger door, the emergency where I become old. Jan stared at me over the roof of the car. "I have bad news about your birth certificate." I got in before she could see me smile. We stopped for coffee and went over the numbers on napkins. Rent, electricity, internet, moving costs. My retirement income would cover it, but not loosely. I would need to pay attention. There would be fewer dinners out, fewer unnecessary purchases, and no pretending that the money Frank and I saved was too sacred to use for my own life. The arithmetic was simple. The permission was harder. When I returned home, a bouquet sat outside my French doors. White roses, pale green leaves, expensive paper. Rebecca had left a card beneath the ribbon. "I'm sorry the weekend made you feel unwanted. I love you. Let's start over." I carried the flowers inside and read the card 3 more times. The apology was beautiful until I noticed that the weekend had done all the hurting. Rebecca came down while I was trimming the stems. "You found them. They're lovely. I thought white would look good down here." Down here? I placed the roses in a glass pitcher because my large vase was still upstairs from the last dinner I had arranged. "I meant what I wrote," she said. "I know." "Do you?" I set the scissors beside the sink. "Do you understand what you're apologizing for?" Her shoulders lifted. "I'm apologizing because you were hurt. That's different." "Of course it's different. I can't apologize for meaning something I didn't mean. You meant I was there to help when things went wrong. I meant that you're good in a crisis and not wanted at dinner." She turned away, walked to the table, then came back. Rebecca never paced in straight lines. I was overwhelmed. I made a thoughtless decision. I'm sorry for the decision. I'm sorry you overheard me explaining it in an awful way. I'm sorry Neil didn't speak up. I'm sorry about the room, even though I honestly chose it because of your hip. That's better." She stared at me. Better? More honest. I didn't come down here to pass a test. I didn't give you one. It always feels like a test with you lately. Maybe that's because you want the right answer without having the conversation. She looked at the application on the table. "You went to see places." "Yes. Did you find one?" "Maybe." The color left her face. "Mom, please don't do this. I'm not doing anything to you. Moving is doing something to me. Staying has been doing something to me." "What?" That question stopped me. Not because I had no answer, but because I had too many, most of them made of ordinary Tuesdays. I don't know when I stopped being a person who lived here and became the person who made living here easier for everyone else. Rebecca sat in the chair opposite me. "I thought you liked helping." "So did I. You always offered. Sometimes. Most of the time. Then the rest of the time, you stopped noticing you were asking." Her eyes dropped to the grocery list Jan had used for arithmetic. Rent was written beside coffee, electricity beside chicken breasts. "I can knock," she said. I waited. "I can stop leaving things for you. We can make a schedule for meals. You don't have to take deliveries." "That sounds fair. Then you'll stay?" I didn't say that. She stood so abruptly the chair legs scraped the floor. "So nothing I do matters. That isn't true. You want me to understand. You want me to apologize. You want me to change. But if I do all of it, you're still leaving. I may need to leave so we can find out whether the change is real." She crossed her arms tightly. "That doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to me." "Well, I'm glad one of us is comfortable." She left the roses behind. I filled the pitcher and set them on the windowsill. White petals opened against the glass, beautiful and expensive and cut from their roots. That night, Walter scratched at my door. Rebecca called him twice from upstairs, but he lay down on my rug. I lowered myself beside him and rubbed the soft place behind his ears. "You stay here," I whispered. "This is your home." He licked my wrist, unconvinced. The following morning, I completed the application for Willow Court. I hesitated at the line asking for my current address, then wrote it carefully. When Donna called that afternoon, she said the apartment was mine if I wanted it. I asked for an hour and used 47 minutes pretending there was still a decision to make. Then I paid the deposit. I took a tape measure to my dining table. It was the same oak table Frank and I had bought after our 10th anniversary, scarred near one corner where he set down a hot pan and insisted the mark gave it character. The living room at Willow Court was 11 feet across. The table would not fit. I stood with the tape extended between my hands, realizing that leaving was not only a matter of choosing where I would go. I would have to choose which pieces of my old life could come with me. The tape snapped back into its case and startled Walter awake. He raised his head, decided no danger required his involvement, and lowered it again. I measured the table a second time, as if the apartment might expand out of respect for persistence. It didn't. Even if I forced it against the longest wall, there would be no room to pull out the chairs. I ran my fingers over the burn near the corner. Frank had made that mark with a cast-iron skillet full of cornbread. I yelled. He apologized. And then he spent years setting his coffee directly on the table because, according to him, perfection had already been lost. Rebecca hated the mark. She had once suggested refinishing the surface. Frank told her he would rather refinish the daughter. I laughed aloud at the memory. Walter's tail tapped the rug without his eyes opening. The table was too large for Jan's house and too heavy to store without paying more than it was worth. Rebecca's dining room already had a long glass table that seated 10 and showed every fingerprint. I wrote table on a sheet of paper and made 3 columns beneath it. Take, give, sell. The page remained otherwise blank. By evening, I had filled 2 boxes with books and 1 with kitchen things. I packed slowly, wrapping every plate in newspaper, even though I had 6 weeks. Moving gave each object an opportunity to argue for its life. The yellow mixing bowl was the loudest. It had belonged to my mother. Thick pottery, mustard-colored glaze, a white scratch inside where decades of spoons had struck the same curve. I had mixed every birthday cake of Rebecca's childhood in that bowl, lemon with raspberry filling from the year she turned 11 onward, because at 11 she announced chocolate cake was too obvious. I wrapped the bowl in a dish towel and placed it in a box marked "Take Myself." No one could misunderstand that instruction. Neil brought home Chinese food and knocked on my French doors. "I come bearing noodles and no emotional agenda," he said through the glass. "Those are usually delivered separately." He held up the bag. "I also have spring rolls." I let him in. Rebecca followed several feet behind him carrying plates. She had knocked every time she came down since our conversation, but she did it with such force that the knocking felt sarcastic. Neil set cartons across my table. "Your table makes more sense for this," he said. Rebecca looked at the measuring tape, the boxes, and the newspaper spread across the floor. "You're packing. I paid the deposit today." Neil stopped opening a carton. Rebecca placed the plates down one at a time. "You said you were looking." I looked. "You said maybe." Then Donna called. "Who's Donna?" "The manager." Of course the manager has a name. Most do. Neil took 3 forks from my drawer and lined them beside the plates. "When would you move?" he asked. 6 weeks from Saturday." Rebecca laughed once without humor. "You've scheduled it. The apartment becomes available then. And you said yes." I did. She looked toward the boxes again. "Congratulations." "Thank you." "I wasn't congratulating you, I know." Neil slid a carton of noodles toward her. "Can we eat before this becomes a food safety issue? No one is stopping you." Rebecca stayed standing while he and I sat. Walter positioned himself beneath the table where all 3 of us could disappoint him equally. "I don't know what you expect me to say," she said. "You don't have to say anything tonight. That's convenient." "For whom?" She pulled out a chair. We ate in a silence broken by containers opening and Walter's hopeful breathing. I had lived through funeral meals with less discomfort. After several minutes, Neil pointed to the paper near my elbow. "What's that? My table won't fit." He examined the measurements. "You sure? The room is 11 feet wide. We could take the legs off. The legs are not what make it wide. I'm brainstorming." Rebecca looked at the burn mark. "We can keep it here." The offer surprised me. "You hate this table. I don't hate it. You tried to have it refinished. I was 28. You said it looked damaged." "It does look damaged." Neil leaned closer to the mark. "Is that the cornbread story?" "You know the cornbread story," Rebecca said. "I enjoy hearing your father threaten furniture restoration." The corner of her mouth moved. For a few minutes, we talked about Frank, about the time he attempted to replace the kitchen faucet and shut off water to half the house, about his belief that printed instructions were written by cowards. Rebecca remembered details I had forgotten, including the exact shirt he ruined and the neighbor whose garden hose he borrowed. She laughed hard enough to put down her fork. I watched her and felt the old pull toward repair. This was my daughter, not a villain, not a stranger. The woman who still did Frank's imitation better than anyone and cried whenever she heard his favorite song in a grocery store. Then she wiped her eyes and said, "See? We're fine." The warmth left the room so gently that Neil might not have noticed. "We had dinner," I said. We laughed. "Yes. So why are you moving?" "Because a good hour doesn't erase the bad arrangement." Her face closed. "I'm trying, Mom." "I know." "No, you don't. If you knew, you'd give me some reason to keep trying. Try because you want a better relationship with me, not because you want me downstairs. That's the same thing. It shouldn't be." She pushed her carton away and stood. "Denise is coming for brunch Sunday," she said. "It's her birthday." "I remember. She asked if you'd be here. I'll come." Rebecca hesitated. "Would you make the lemon cake?" There it was, so small and familiar I almost missed it. "No." Her eyebrows rose. "No? I'll come to brunch, but I'm not baking. It's Denise's favorite. I thought lemon was my cake, Rebecca said at 11. Apparently she had shared ownership over the years. You always make it. I know. She'll be disappointed. Then tell her before Sunday. Rebecca looked at Neil. Are you hearing this? I am aggressively eating noodles. It's a cake, Mom. I'm not asking you to organize a state dinner. I said I'd come. But you won't bring anything. I'll bring something. You just said you wouldn't. I said I wouldn't bake. Her laugh was sharp. So you're going to buy a cake to prove a point? No. I'm going to buy a cake because people like cake. She left without taking her plate. Neil gathered the containers. I can put those away, I said. No, you cooked Sunday. I didn't. Exactly. I'm behind. He carried everything upstairs. On Sunday, I arrived in the main dining room at 11:55 with a white bakery box tied in red string. Rebecca had set the table with yellow napkins and small vases of grocery store tulips. She looked at the box, then at me. You actually bought one. The woman at Bell's Bakery seemed willing to sell it. Is it lemon, vanilla with strawberries? Denise likes lemon. Denise likes free cake. The front door opened before Rebecca could answer. Denise came in with her husband, Tom, both carrying wine despite the time of day. Denise hugged me longer than usual. How's the hip? My hip. Rebecca said it flared up at the lodge. Across the room, Rebecca went very still. My hip was fine. Denise leaned back. She looked from me to Rebecca. Oh. I left because I wasn't feeling welcome. Neil became fascinated by the arrangement of forks. Rebecca set down the pitcher she was holding. Mom. What? Could you help me in the kitchen? It sounded like a request. It wasn't. I followed her because I didn't want Denise's birthday to become a hearing. The kitchen door swung shut behind us. What are you doing? Rebecca whispered, answering her question. You embarrassed me. I didn't tell her why. You told her I lied. You did lie. I was protecting you. From what? People knowing you walked out over a misunderstanding. Then you were protecting yourself. She gripped the edge of the counter. You said you weren't trying to punish me. I'm not. You bring a store cake when everyone knows you always bake. You correct me in front of Denise. You announce you're moving. What would punishment look like? I didn't announce anything. I told you and Neil in my own rooms. You knew Denise would ask about the lodge. I didn't know you'd used my hip as an alibi. Her eyes flashed. What was I supposed to say? The truth. At my anniversary? Today. The kitchen door opened. Denise stuck her head through. Do I have to be 70 before I'm allowed in the argument? Or is 52 close enough? Rebecca stepped back from the counter. It's nothing. Denise looked at me. Is it nothing? No. Good. I hate when people make me pretend I can't hear through a door. She came inside and closed it behind her. Rebecca stared at her. This is your birthday brunch. I've had 51 others. Most weren't memorable. Denise poured herself coffee. Neil told me what happened. Rebecca's face changed. When? Yesterday. You discussed this with your sister? Neil called from the dining room. You called her first. That was different. Denise took a sip. Rebecca, I'm not taking sides. Excellent opening for taking a side. I think leaving the lodge was dramatic. Thank you. And I think not seating your mother at dinner was awful. Rebecca's gratitude vanished. It was a mistake. Then why are you still defending it? Because everyone is acting like it explains our entire relationship. I answered before I meant to. It explained something to me. Rebecca looked at me, and the anger in her face cracked. Underneath it was hurt so direct I had to look away. We returned to the dining room and managed brunch, like adults who knew which subjects could ruin eggs. Denise opened gifts. Tom told a long story about buying the wrong bottle of wine. Neil cut the bakery cake, and Denise ate 2 pieces. This is excellent, she said. Rebecca took 1 bite and left the rest on her plate. After everyone went home, I carried the empty cake box downstairs. Walter followed, moving carefully because his joints were stiff. Rebecca came after us and knocked on the open door. "I don't want you to go," she said. "Not don't move, not this time." I set the box on the counter. "I know. You keep saying that like it doesn't matter. It matters so much I stayed 3 years without asking whether I was happy." She flinched. "You could have told me. I'm telling you now." "No, now you're leaving." Her voice broke on the last word. She turned before I could answer and went upstairs. Walter stood at the bottom step, looking after her. Then he looked at me. For once, neither of us followed. Walter eventually went upstairs on his own. I heard Rebecca open the door for him, then the low murmur of her voice as she apologized to the dog for things neither of them had done. The next morning, a delivery truck blocked the driveway at 8. A man in a yellow vest rang the front bell twice, then came around to my French doors. "Mrs. Hayes?" "Yes." "Got a dishwasher." I looked past him at the truck. "I didn't order one," says Rebecca Hayes. "That's my daughter." He checked his tablet. "She home?" "She left for work." He turned the screen toward me. "Somebody needs to sign and let us in. We disconnect the old unit, install the new one, haul away packaging." In the past, Rebecca would have mentioned the delivery the night before while I was washing a cup or letting Walter outside. She would have said, "You'll be around tomorrow, right?" By morning, the question would have become an appointment on my calendar. This time, she hadn't asked at all. "You'll need to call her," I said. The man looked toward the house. "We've got a 2-hour window. I hope she can get here." His expression suggested I had failed a basic citizenship test. He called the number on the order. No answer. He called again, then went back to the truck. At 10:30, Rebecca phoned me. "Why didn't you let them install the dishwasher?" "Good morning." "I'm serious. They charge a redelivery fee. I didn't know they were coming. You were home. That's not the same as being available. They needed a signature, Mom, not a kidney. They needed access to your kitchen in 2 hours of my day. You were packing books." I looked toward the French doors. From upstairs, the kitchen windows had a clear view of my sitting room. "Were you checking?" "I saw the boxes when I left. You didn't ask me. I didn't think I had to formally request a signature. That's what asking is." She was quiet for a beat. "So this is how it's going to be until you leave." "How what's going to be?" "You'll refuse anything that might help us, even if it costs you nothing." "It doesn't cost nothing. It costs time. You're retired." The sentence came out casually, which made it worse. I looked at the half-filled box beside me. Inside were Frank's fishing books, my gardening gloves, and photographs I'd been trying to sort without crying. "I still have time," I said. "That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant." She exhaled. "I have a meeting." "Then go to your meeting." She hung up. The dishwasher returned 3 days later during a window Rebecca had arranged with Neil. Neil worked from the kitchen while the installers disconnected hoses and complained about the plumbing. By lunchtime, there was water under the sink, 2 men arguing over an adapter, and Walter trembling in my bathroom because he disliked power tools. Neil knocked on my open door. "You win," he said. "I wasn't competing. This is absolutely worth more than a kidney." He sat on the floor beside Walter and fed him bits of cheese until the drilling stopped. Later, he found me wrapping glassware at the table. "Can I ask a dangerous question?" "You usually do. What can we help with?" I glanced toward the ceiling. "Does Rebecca know you're asking?" "No. Then find out." He leaned against the counter. "She thinks helping you move means I approve." "Do you?" "I approve of you doing what you need to do. That's a husband answer. I've had 20 years of training. It's a good answer. It just isn't one you can carry boxes with." He looked down at the roll of packing tape in my hand. "I should have spoken at the lodge," he said. "We've covered that." "No, you said I should have spoken. I said I didn't know you were there. Those aren't the same conversation." I waited. He rubbed his thumb across a scratch in the countertop. "I liked having you here. I still do. You cook better than either of us. You remember everything. When something breaks, I don't have to watch Rebecca panic because you've usually solved it before she tells me. That's flattering in a terrible way. I know." He gave a small, uncomfortable laugh. I heard her say you were only there if something went wrong, and my first thought wasn't that it was cruel. My first thought was, well, Lorraine is good when things go wrong. Honesty can hurt worse than an excuse, but it leaves a cleaner wound. Thank you for telling me. I was using you too. You made coffee. That feels weak as payment. It was good coffee. It was adequate coffee. We both smiled. He picked up an empty box. I'll tell Rebecca I'm helping. If she asks me not to, I'm still helping. Don't make me a weapon in your marriage. I won't. Say it before you do it, not after. He nodded. Fair. Rebecca came home while he was still downstairs. She paused at the bottom step, saw the box in his hands, and looked from him to me. What are you doing? I'm helping Lorraine sort. You said you had emails. I do, so go answer them. He set the box on the table. I'm going to help with the move. Her face became very calm. Did Mom ask you? No. Then why are you announcing it here? Because I don't want you to think I'm hiding it. She glanced at me. How considerate. I'm not taking sides. That must be exhausting, standing directly in the middle of every room. Neil's expression hardened. I should have spoken up at the lodge. Yes, you should have. I didn't because having Lorraine take care of things is convenient for me. Rebecca stared at him. Wonderful. Is this confession hour? No, it's me telling you why I'm helping. You're helping because you feel guilty. Partly. And once she moves, you'll come upstairs and expect me to make dinner. I can make dinner. You burn eggs. From my chair, I said, they are respectable eggs. Neither of them laughed. Rebecca turned to me. You wanted us to have this conversation, I suppose. I wanted him not to hide things from you. You mean unlike me. I didn't say that. You don't have to say much anymore. Everyone fills it in. She went upstairs. Neil looked toward the closed door. I feel that went well. Your standards are concerning. He helped me pack until 5, then went upstairs carrying takeout menus like peace offerings. Jan came by after dinner with bubble wrap and gossip. Marcy says you nearly ruined the anniversary, she announced. I stopped folding newspaper. Marcy said that. She asked whether I thought you regretted leaving at such a dramatic moment. What did you tell her? That regret and Lorraine aren't on speaking terms. That doesn't even make sense. It sounded good at the pharmacy. I sat down. What else did she say? Jan unwound a length of bubble wrap. Rebecca told people you were upset about your room and left after they tried to accommodate you. My room. Apparently your hip was involved, but the details weren't consistent. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Rebecca said I left because of the room? She said you became overwhelmed and decided it was best to go. Marcy added the selfish parts herself. That sounds like Marcy. You want me to correct her? No, I'd enjoy it. No. Jan sighed and put down the bubble wrap. You can't let Rebecca tell the story and then be angry when people believe her. I'm not calling everyone who attended that anniversary. Then at least stop protecting the lie. I corrected it with Denise. Good. Denise has a telephone. That was not as comforting as Jan intended. The following evening, Rebecca came down holding the silver earrings she had worn at the lodge. Were these in your things? No. They were in the emergency box. Then you put them there. She laid them on the table. Marcy called, I heard. From Jan? Yes, of course. I waited. Rebecca picked at the corner of a cardboard box. I didn't tell people you tried to ruin the weekend. What did you tell them? That you were tired, your hip hurt, and you felt uncomfortable in the courtyard room. My hip didn't hurt. I know that. The room wasn't why I left. I know. Then why did you say it? Because people were asking me questions on the morning I was renewing my vows. You've had several mornings since. What do you want me to do? Issue a correction. I want you to stop acting like the truth is something I'm doing to you. She flinched. I couldn't tell them you left because of me. There was no anger in her voice now. I sat across from her. You could have said we had an argument. Then they'd ask what about. You could tell them. And let 38 people think I'm awful? Does it matter what I think? Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears away. I know what you think. No, you know I'm moving. That says enough. She stood. At the stairs, she noticed the dining table sheet with "Give" circled. What are you doing with Dad's table? Donna said Willow Court could use it in the common room. You're giving it to strangers. It won't fit in the apartment. Keep it here. You have a table. We can store it. Where? The garage. Under the old paint and Christmas decorations? It would still be ours. Ours surprised me. Frank had bought the table with me before Rebecca was old enough to see over it. Yet in her mind, it belonged to the house we had once been together. It should be used, I said. I could use it. Would you replace the glass one? She looked toward the ceiling, toward the dining room she had designed around clean lines and pale wood. I might. No, you wouldn't. You don't know that. I know you hate the burn. Her fingers moved over the mark. I don't hate it, she said softly. I remember it. For the first time since I paid the deposit, I reconsidered something. Not the apartment. The table. If you really want it, keep it. Her face lifted. But don't hide it in the garage. If you decide not to use it, tell me before I move. I'll use it. I knew she believed herself. The next morning, the glass dining table appeared online for sale. Rebecca never mentioned that she had listed it. She simply knocked on my door with her phone in her hand and asked whether Frank's table came apart. Together, without forgiving each other, we turned it upside down on my rug and began removing the legs. The screws had not moved since Frank tightened them years ago. Rebecca held the flashlight while I worked a wrench beneath the table. Left, she said. I know which way loosens. You're turning right. I'm upside down. The screw isn't. I slid out and looked at her. She was kneeling on the rug in work clothes, her hair tucked behind one ear. Would you like to do it? No. I'm management. That explains the flashlight in my eyes. She lowered the beam. Sorry. The first screw finally gave with a squeal. Rebecca put one hand on the tabletop as if it might try to escape. Dad would have used that spray. Your father used cooking oil. It worked. It attracted ants. It worked first. By the time we removed the fourth leg, both of us had dust in our hair. We leaned the tabletop against the wall and sat on the floor beside it. Without its legs, the table looked smaller, less like a witness. Rebecca touched the burned corner. I was so embarrassed by this when my college friends came over. I know. You always told the whole story. Your father told the story. You encouraged him. He made sound effects. She smiled. He did. Then her smile disappeared. Did you hate living with us? No, not even lately. I didn't hate it. That's not very reassuring. I loved parts of it. Morning coffee with Neil, Walter stealing my socks, you coming down after work and sitting at the table without taking your coat off. You complained that I left my coat on the chair. I can love you and still want you to hang up a coat. She folded her arms around her knees. Then why didn't you say anything before? I said little things. You made little comments. That's how I say little things. No, that's how you say big things while keeping the right to deny them. I looked at her. It was not entirely wrong. I should have been clearer. She nodded, though she seemed irritated that I had agreed. And you should have asked. I did ask. You asked if I minded waiting for the plumber. You didn't ask whether I wanted my days to belong to the house. Her gaze shifted to the stripped screws lined on the rug. I thought being here helped you too. It did. After Dad, yes. You were so lost. I was. She swallowed. I was scared to leave you alone. That surprised me enough to be quiet. Rebecca had been efficient after Frank died. She arranged food, answered calls, chose the photograph for the service, and reminded me to drink water. I had mistaken her competence for distance, the same way she had mistaken mine for willingness. I didn't know you were scared, I said. You were my mother. You weren't supposed to look that empty. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for that. She reached over and wiped a streak of dust from my sleeve. I wanted you close, she said. Maybe I got used to the wrong parts. It was the nearest she had come to understanding. I wanted to hold on to it, but understanding spoken on a floor is easier than understanding lived on a Tuesday. We carried the table legs upstairs together. The glass table sold to a couple who arrived in a pickup truck and spent 20 minutes debating whether the base would fit through the front door. Rebecca had measured twice. Neil had measured once and declared optimism a tool. It did not fit. They took the door off its hinges while I watched from the kitchen. "This feels familiar," I told Rebecca. She looked toward the ceiling as if Frank might be enjoying himself. When the truck finally pulled away, the dining room stood empty except for pale rectangles where the rug had protected the floor from sunlight. We brought Frank's tabletop up from my suite. Neil cleaned the burn mark but did not sand it. Rebecca positioned the table beneath the light fixture, stepped back, moved it 2 inches, stepped back again, then moved it 1 inch to the left. "It's crooked," she said. "The room is crooked," Neil told her. "Houses aren't crooked. Then this one has character." She gave him a look that belonged to her father. For the first time, I could imagine the table staying there without feeling that I had abandoned it. The rest of the house changed more quietly. My books disappeared from the downstairs shelves. The framed photographs came off the walls, leaving clean squares in the paint. Every few days, another piece of furniture gained a colored sticker. Take, donate, upstairs. Neil obeyed the labels. Rebecca argued with them. "You're taking the blue lamp. It's mine. It looks good in the suite. I'm taking the suite out of the suite. What are we supposed to put down here? Whatever you like." She looked around as if an empty room were an accusation. The new dishwasher worked. Grocery deliveries arrived on Saturdays. Neil began keeping Walter's joint tablets beside the coffee so he would remember them. Rebecca cooked twice and ordered food 4 times. No one starved. One evening, I smelled something burning upstairs and found Rebecca scraping chicken from a skillet. "You could lower the heat," I said. She looked at me over her shoulder. "Are you helping or observing?" "Observing. Then observe from farther away." I did. 10 minutes later, she came downstairs carrying 2 blackened pieces on a plate. "Do you have any of that mustard sauce?" "In the refrigerator door." She found it herself. These were not dramatic changes. That was the point. The household did not collapse without me. It became less polished, more expensive, and occasionally overcooked. I was relieved. I was also offended. Moving day arrived with rain because weather respects a theme. Jan came at 7 carrying coffee and a roll of trash bags. "People underestimate trash bags," she said. "No one has ever said that. People without vision." Denise and Tom brought their station wagon. Neil rented a small moving truck. Rebecca appeared in the driveway wearing old jeans and one of Frank's faded college sweatshirts. I hadn't seen that sweatshirt in years. "You kept it," I said. She looked down. "It was in a box upstairs. I thought I donated it." "You almost did." She picked up a box marked bedroom before I could ask more. The move took 3 trips. Willow Court's elevator worked, which Donna said was our first piece of luck. She held the lobby door open while Neil and Tom wrestled my sofa inside. "It'll fit," Neil said. "It's wider than the elevator," Tom said. "Diagonal is a type of narrow." From behind them, Rebecca called, "That isn't what diagonal means." They turned the sofa until everyone was wrong in a different direction. Eventually, it went in. My apartment filled with boxes faster than it filled with familiarity. The blue lamp looked too large. The bedroom dresser blocked half the closet until Jan suggested moving it to the opposite wall. Rebecca opened cabinets in the kitchen and began assigning locations. Plates here, glasses by the sink, coffee above the machine. I can decide where my coffee goes. She froze with a stack of mugs in her hands. Right. She put them on the counter. A minute later, she asked, "Where do you want these?" It was awkward and deliberate. I pointed to a cabinet. "Up there, please." She put them away. At lunchtime, we ate sandwiches in the empty living room. Donna had loaned us folding chairs from the community room. Rain streaked the windows. We could see only the balcony railing and the wet tops of the sycamores. Denise raised her paper cup. "To Lorraine's new home. Everyone lifted a drink except Rebecca, who was folding her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. Neil touched her knee. She picked up her cup. "To the apartment," she said. "Not home." I let it pass. After lunch, Neil installed the curtain rods. Tom assembled a narrow bookcase and discovered one shelf was backward, only after tightening every screw. Jan lined the kitchen drawers. Denise unpacked my bathroom things and displayed 14 nearly empty bottles of lotion as if staging an intervention. "Why do you own all of these? They were gifts. Some are old enough to vote." Rebecca moved through the rooms without speaking much. Whenever she finished a box, she flattened it with unnecessary force. At 4, there was nothing left to carry. Neil handed me the apartment keys. I had given him one that morning so he could move in and out without buzzing. "Do you want us to keep a spare?" he asked. Rebecca looked up. "Not yet," I said. Her face tightened. "The building has secure entry," I added. "I heard you. It isn't about emergencies." "Of course it is." Neil slipped the spare from the ring and placed it in my palm. "If you change your mind," he said. I nodded. They drove me back to the house for my final things. My suite looked larger empty. Without the rug and curtains, every sound bounced. The only furniture left was the narrow bed frame, which belonged to Rebecca, and the chair where she used to leave laundry. Walter stood in the middle of the room, confused. I knelt slowly and held his face in both hands. "You're staying here." His cloudy brown eyes watched me. "You have a yard. You have your bed. Neil knows about the tablets." Walter licked my chin. Rebecca stood by the French doors, hugging herself. "You can take him," she said. "The offer cost her something. He's 11. An elevator and a balcony aren't an improvement. He sleeps down here. He'll adjust." "What if you don't?" I pressed my face into the side of his neck. He smelled like rain and dog biscuits. "I'll visit." Rebecca turned toward the garden. Neil loaded my suitcase. I checked the cabinets, opened every drawer, and walked through the bathroom twice. Nothing remained except a dish towel on the kitchen counter. I folded it and put it in my handbag. At the front door, Rebecca hugged me. She had not asked permission. The old Rebecca would have assumed I wanted the hug, and most of the time she would have been right. This hug felt different. Her arms were tight and still. She wasn't comforting me or asking to be comforted. She was holding on. "I love you," she said into my shoulder. "I love you too. That doesn't feel like enough. It's enough for today." She let go. Neil drove me back to Willow Court while Rebecca stayed with Walter. When he carried my suitcase upstairs, he stood in the doorway as if waiting to be invited farther. "Do you need anything?" he asked. The question sounded unfamiliar in his mouth without a broken appliance behind it. "I need to unpack. Want help? No? Want company?" I considered it. "Not tonight." He kissed my cheek and left. The apartment changed after the door closed. While everyone was there, it had been a project. Without them, it was 4 quiet rooms filled with the wrong sounds. The refrigerator hummed. Pipes knocked somewhere inside the wall. A woman laughed in the hallway, then a door clicked shut. I opened the box marked, "Take Myself." My dishes were inside, the framed photograph of Frank, 2 cookbooks, the towel I had wrapped around the yellow mixing bowl, no bowl. I searched the other kitchen boxes, then my suitcase. I checked the cabinets Rebecca had filled. The bowl was still at the house. I stood in the small kitchen holding the empty towel, too tired to call and too proud to go back. For the first time since Frank died, there was no one above me, beside me, or waiting for me to make morning easier. I had wanted space. I had not understood how much silence came with it. I turned on every light. The apartment was too small to need them all, but light made the silence seem intentional. I unpacked until midnight, stacking books on the backward shelf and placing Frank's photograph beside the blue lamp. When I finally went to bed, I could hear the elevator cables moving inside the wall. At 1:13, somebody dropped what sounded like a bowling ball in the apartment above me. At 3, pipes groaned behind the bathroom. At 6:30, I woke because I thought Walter was scratching at the door. I sat up and listened. Nothing. The kitchen looked less lonely after I put water in the coffee maker. I reached automatically for the tall blue mug, then remembered it was Neil's and 2 miles away. My own mug stood in the cabinet where I had told Rebecca to put it. I drank coffee on the balcony in my robe. The metal chair was wet, the sycamore leaves still dripping from the rain. Cars moved along the street below. Someone on the 3rd floor watered a plant, spilling half the water over the railing. "Sorry," a woman called down. "I needed a shower." She leaned over far enough for me to see a crown of white hair. "You're the new one." That's what they tell me. "I'm Anita, 307, Lorraine, 412. Donna will make you do chair yoga. I'm prepared to resist." No one is prepared. She uses muffins. Anita disappeared from the railing. A few minutes later, someone knocked. I opened the door expecting Donna. Anita stood there in slippers, holding 2 blueberry muffins on a paper plate. "I'm not Donna," she said. "I can see that. These are reconnaissance muffins. Chair yoga muffins have bran." I invited her in. Anita was 71, widowed twice, and incapable of telling a story without explaining where everyone had parked. She had lived at Willow Court for 5 years and knew which washing machine stole quarters, which elevator made the bad sound, and why no one should accept potato salad from the man in 215. "Not poison," she said. "Too much dill." She looked at the boxes around my living room. "Family help you move?" My daughter, her husband, his sister, her husband, and a friend. That's a good crew. It was. "Then why do you look like you escaped during the night?" I laughed despite myself. "Long story." "Good. Short stories are usually medical." She stayed 20 minutes and left me with both muffins, a laundry schedule, and an invitation to Friday coffee downstairs. After she left, I checked my phone. Rebecca had sent a picture at 7:14. Walter was lying outside the closed French doors to my old suite, his nose pressed to the threshold. "He keeps waiting for you," she wrote. I stared at the photograph until the words beneath it became unkind, whether she had meant them that way or not. I typed, "Bring him over this afternoon if you want." She replied almost immediately, "I have appointments all day, no suggestion of another time." At 10, Neil texted, "How was the first night?" "No emergencies," I wrote. He sent back, "Show off." That was easier. Setting up the apartment cost more than the arithmetic on Jan's napkins had allowed. I needed a narrow table, a shower curtain, a trash can that fit beneath the sink, and a rug that did not make the living room look like a motel lobby. Every purchase reminded me that independence came with sales tax. I found a small round table at a second-hand furniture shop. The salesman called it vintage. "It has a water ring shaped like Ohio," I said. "That adds character." I already owned character. It was too large for the room. He reduced the price by $20. Jan helped me carry it upstairs. We ate sandwiches at it using 1 chair each, our knees bumping beneath the scratched surface. "This is good," she said. "You say that because you didn't pay for it. It's not the table. It's you sitting at it. I sat at the other one. You served at the other one." "That's dramatic." "I practice." I looked toward the empty chair beside us. "I miss them." "Of course you do. I miss Walter most." "Also understandable. I miss Rebecca." Jan peeled the crust from her sandwich. "Still understandable. I thought you'd say something terrible." "I save terrible for people who think leaving means you stop loving." I folded my napkin. "What if she thinks I stopped?" "Then she'll have to ask." She didn't ask. She called about practical things. Did I know the name of the man who cleaned the gutters? Where did Neil keep the spare garage remote? Had I seen the large glass vase? Each time I answered the question, if I knew. Boundaries did not require pretending I had amnesia. I did not make the call, find the remote, or drive over with the vase. On Thursday, Neil came by carrying 2 coffees. He buzzed from the lobby, waited outside my door, and did not enter until I stepped aside. "You're learning," I said. I watched a video. He gave me the cup with no sugar and the correct amount of milk. His had too much milk, as always. We sat on the balcony. The second chair forced our knees close together. "This is nice," he said. "You don't have to sound surprised. It feels like a treehouse. It feels like sitting above a pharmacy. Trees are involved." He looked over the railing, then back through the apartment. "You're settling in. I've located the bathroom." That's the first milestone. He did not ask where anything was. He did not mention a repair, an appointment, or a missing object. The silence between us was comfortable until I made it suspicious. "What do you need?" He smiled without looking at me. "Coffee." "You could have coffee at home. I miss morning coffee with you." The answer warmed me before I could defend against it. I miss it too. Rebecca does too. Rebecca drank coffee upstairs. She misses knowing you were downstairs. That isn't the same as missing me. No. But I think she misses you too. I took a sip. Don't translate her for me. I'm not. You're halfway through a sentence that starts with Rebecca and ends with something she hasn't said. He raised both hands. Fair. We watched a delivery truck stop beside the pharmacy. After a while, he said, "She hasn't done anything with the suite. I've been gone 4 days. She won't let me take the bed frame apart." What does she want it for? I don't think she knows. I pictured my old rooms waiting downstairs with clean rectangles on the walls. She'll decide. He nodded. "The table looks good upstairs," he said. "Did it fit?" "Once I put the legs on correctly." "How many attempts?" "That feels personal." He finished his coffee and folded the empty cup between his hands. "She sits there in the morning." "Rebecca?" "Sometimes." There was something he wanted me to do with that information. Forgive her, perhaps. Call her. Move back before she had to admit she wanted me. I let the information be only what it was. "I'm glad she kept it," I said. Neil left without asking for anything. That evening, I went to Friday coffee in the community room. It was held on Thursday because, according to Anita, the name referred to an attitude rather than a day. 8 people sat around folding tables with mismatched mugs. Donna had brought bran muffins. Anita pointed at them. Predatory. I stayed an hour. No one asked me to serve the coffee. A man named George spilled sugar and cleaned it himself. Anita told everyone I had recently escaped a house with superior plumbing. I corrected her only about the plumbing. When I returned upstairs, my phone showed a message from Rebecca. "Dinner, Sunday?" I waited for the rest. It came 2 minutes later. "You don't have to bring anything." I read those 6 words several times. "What time?" I wrote. 7. I arrived at 6:59. Rebecca opened the door before I knocked, which meant she had been watching for me. Walter pushed past her and nearly took my legs out. I sat on the entry floor in my good pants while he climbed over me, whined, sneezed in my face, and licked both ears. "I've been replaced," Rebecca said. "You don't smell like salmon treats." She helped me stand. The dining room had changed. Frank's table sat beneath the light, surrounded by Rebecca's pale, upholstered chairs. She had placed a runner down the center, but left the burned corner uncovered. On the kitchen counter, the yellow mixing bowl held a green salad. I stopped. Rebecca followed my eyes. "I found it in one of the boxes," she said. "I thought it belonged up here. It was wrapped in a towel. The box was open. It said, 'Take myself.' I must have missed that." She picked up the salad tongs. "Do you want it back tonight?" I could have said yes. Instead, I said, "After dinner." Neil had roasted a chicken. One side was too dark, and the vegetables had cooked into several different textures. Rebecca served everything herself. She gave me a plate and sat down before checking whether anyone needed salt. We talked about Denise's plan to repaint her kitchen and Anita's warning about the laundry machines. For nearly 40 minutes, nothing hurt. Then Rebecca asked, "Could you stay tomorrow morning for the furnace inspection?" The question was so ordinary that my body began arranging the answer before my mind caught up. "What time?" "Between 8 and noon. I have an appointment at 10. "Can you move it?" "No." She set down her fork. "It's just a haircut." "How do you know? You always get your hair cut around this time." "Then you already knew I might have plans." "I forgot." "It's fine. Neil can rearrange his calls." Neil glanced up. "I have the quarterly review." Rebecca's mouth tightened. I looked at the yellow bowl on the counter. The dinner, the uncovered burn mark, the invitation without an assignment. I had wanted them to mean something. Maybe they did. Maybe the request meant something too. "I'll come at 8, I said. "If they haven't arrived by 9:30, I'm leaving." Rebecca's face relaxed. "Thank you." The next morning, the inspector arrived at 9:20. I left at 9:40 and made my haircut. It was not a failure. I had agreed, set a limit, and kept it. Still, when I returned to Willow Court, I realized the yellow mixing bowl was not in my car. Rebecca had not reminded me. Neither had I. A week later, my new life had begun developing habits. Coffee on the balcony, Thursday, Friday, coffee. A walk to the pharmacy instead of a drive. Walter visited once with Neil and spent the entire hour inspecting corners for evidence of betrayal. Rebecca called less often. When she did, she no longer asked where things were. Sometimes she sounded as if she had called for a reason and lost it before I answered. One night, my phone rang while I was washing a single dinner plate. "Are you busy?" she asked. "I'm washing dishes." "Oh." I waited. A song played faintly behind her. Frank's favorite, an old recording with too much trumpet. "It came on the radio," she said. "I can hear it. I almost changed it. Your father would have taken that personally." She laughed softly. Neither of us said anything for the rest of the song. When it ended, Rebecca cleared her throat. "I just wanted to hear your voice." There was no furnace inspector, no dinner, cake, dog tablet, florist, or chair. I leaned against the small kitchen counter. "I'm here," I said. For the first time since I moved, she let that be enough. We stayed on the phone for another 20 minutes after the song ended. Rebecca told me the new dishwasher beeped whenever anyone opened it before the drying cycle finished. I told her my refrigerator sounded like a lawnmower at midnight. Neither of us offered to solve the other's problem. It was the best conversation we'd had in months. After that, we became careful with each other. Rebecca came to Willow Court on a Tuesday evening carrying takeout from the Thai place I liked. She buzzed from the lobby, knocked at my door, and held up the bag. "I brought dinner," she said. "There are no household appliances in my car. That seems reckless. I'm trying something new." She noticed the blue lamp beside the bookcase. "It looks good there. You said it was too large. I was wrong. Would you like to sit down and recover?" We ate at the little round table. Rebecca kept shifting her chair because our knees touched underneath it. "This table is tiny. It has character. It has Ohio." I showed her the water ring, and she laughed. She asked about Willow Court. I told her about Anita, Thursday, Friday coffee, and the man in 215 whose potato salad had become a building-wide warning. Rebecca listened without checking her phone. When the cartons were empty, she stood and began collecting them. "You don't have to clean up," I said. "I know." The answer mattered. She rinsed the forks, put the trash in the correct bin without asking, and left before the visit could turn into an errand. At the door, she hugged me. Not as tightly as she had on moving day. "I like it here," she said. "So do I." Her face flickered, but she nodded. That weekend, Donna asked whether I would bring dessert to the community potluck. "You don't have to," she said. "George is bringing cookies. Store-bought?" He removes them from the package and puts them on a plate, so legally we can't prove anything. I offered to make lemon cake. The words came easily. No resentment, no internal argument about whether anyone expected too much from me. I wanted to make it because Anita had fixed the loose wheel on my grocery cart. Donna had found someone to level my crooked cabinet door, and George's cookies needed supervision. I bought a new mixing bowl. It was stainless steel, light enough to lift with one hand and completely without history. The spoon made a thin metallic sound against the sides. The cake came out well, not exactly the same as the ones I made in the yellow bowl, which was foolish. A bowl does not know a recipe. Still, the batter felt different under my hand. Anita took a picture of me carrying the cake into the community room. She posted it somewhere online, and Denise saw it. By Sunday, Rebecca had seen it too. "You baked for your new neighbors," she said over the phone. Her tone made neighbors sound like a rival family I had acquired through deception. It was a potluck. You wouldn't bake for Denise. I didn't want to bake that day, but you wanted to bake for people you barely know. Yes. She was quiet. That's cruel. No, Rebecca. It's choice. It's cake. Then why are you upset? Because you made a performance out of refusing me, and now you're smiling in a picture with the exact thing you refused to make. I wasn't smiling at you. That's supposed to help? I sat on the balcony. Below me, a delivery cyclist chained his bicycle to a sign. I like baking, I said. I don't like being told that liking it means I owe it whenever someone wants it. No one said you owed us. You said Denise would be disappointed. She was. She ate 2 pieces of the cake I brought. That isn't the point. Apparently, cake has become very complicated. You know what? Forget it. She hung up. The call spoiled what had been a good day. I resented her for that, then resented myself for letting her. Anita knocked later with an empty plate. Your daughter commented on my picture, she said. What did she say? Looks delicious with a heart. That sounds nice. It was a blue heart. What does blue mean? I have no idea, but it felt pointed. I took the plate. Never show me the internet again. Rebecca did not call for 5 days. Neil came for coffee on the 6th. He stood outside my door holding 2 cups and a paper bag. You brought a muffin. Peace offering. I'm not fighting with you. It's not my piece. I left him in the hall. He looked down at the bag. It has blueberries. That is emotional interference. Understood. He waited. I opened the door wider. We sat inside because the morning was cold. Neil took the chair nearest the window. I stayed at the table, putting Ohio between us. I'm not here to translate, he said. That's a good opening. I'm here because I miss coffee. What's in the bag? A muffin. You already said that. I'm nervous. I smiled despite myself. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Rebecca and I had a fight. I don't need the details. She asked me to call you. For what? The refrigerator stopped cooling. Call a repairman, that's what I said. Then why would she ask you to call me? Because you know the repair company. The number is on a magnet beside the refrigerator. I found it. Problem solved. He nodded. That became part of the fight. I closed my eyes briefly. What did you say to her? I said every time she talks about missing you, she turns you into a service before the sentence ends. That was unkind. I know. Was it true? Enough to be worse. He picked at the seam of his coffee cup. She said everyone has decided she doesn't love you. I never said that. I know. You both need to stop telling me what the other one thinks. I'm not asking you to fix it. Then what are you asking? He looked around the apartment. Maybe nothing. That was becoming the most difficult gift my family could offer. He left the muffin on the table and went home. The refrigerator needed a new control board. Rebecca and Neil lost a freezer full of food and ate takeout for 3 nights. No one died. The repair cost too much. Rebecca handled the appointment herself. She still did not call me. I nearly called her twice. Once while standing in the pharmacy line, once after I dreamed about Frank and woke with my face wet. Both times I put the phone down. A boundary could become a wall if you kept adding bricks merely because you were frightened of the door. I sent her a message. I'm getting coffee downstairs at 10 if you want to come. She replied an hour later, can't today. No explanation. At 10, I sat with Anita and Donna while George described a disagreement with his dentist. I laughed when everyone else laughed. I drank 2 cups of coffee. At 11:30, the lobby buzzer sounded in my apartment. I pressed the button. Hello? It's me. Rebecca's voice was thin through the speaker. I released the lobby door. When she stepped off the elevator, she was carrying the yellow mixing bowl. She held it against her chest with both hands. A white dish towel was tucked inside, the same one I had wrapped around it. I thought you couldn't come, I said. I canceled something. You didn't have to. I know. She waited until I stepped aside before entering. The bowl looked larger in my kitchen than it had in hers. She placed it on the little round table directly over Ohio and sat across from me. I'm not asking you to move back, she said. I had not expected the sentence, and she could tell. I'm not asking for anything. Okay. I practiced this in the car, and now it sounds like I'm making a presentation. You do like a presentation. Please don't make me laugh." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "I told Alyssa you were only there if something went wrong because I wanted it to sound like you weren't important to the weekend. The directness struck me harder than another excuse would have." "Why?" "Because if you were important, then I had to explain why. To whom? Myself, mostly." She looked at the bowl. "You do so much for us." More than I admitted. I liked it, and I hated it. I said nothing. "When you were there, everything worked. Dinner happened. The dog got his pills. The repairman came. Neil had the right shirt. I never had to feel unprepared for long because you were already fixing whatever I missed. You could have asked me to do less. I didn't want less." The answer was immediate. She wiped her palms on her pants. "I wanted all of it. I just didn't want anyone to see I needed it. And sometimes, when you helped, I felt 12 years old, like you were watching me fail at things other women knew how to do. I never thought that. I know. Or I think I know. But you'd walk into the kitchen, lower the heat, find the missing ingredient, and suddenly I wasn't in my own house anymore. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me you were unhappy?" There it was. But it did not sound like an accusation this time. "We were both cowards," she said, "just in different rooms." I looked toward the balcony. A breeze moved the sycamore branches outside. Rebecca continued. "At the lodge, I wanted a picture of my life where I looked like I had made everything happen. The marriage, the weekend, the beautiful dinner. If you were sitting beside me, I would know how much of the beautiful part you had carried. So you left me out. I put you where I always put you. Behind everything." Her voice broke. "I made you responsible for every disaster so I could pretend you didn't belong in the good parts." The sentence settled between us. She did not cry dramatically. One tear moved down her cheek, and she wiped it away with an irritated swipe. "I'm sorry," she said. "Not that you felt unwanted. I made you unwanted. I used you, then acted embarrassed that you were useful, and when you left, I lied because the truth made me look exactly like what I was. I looked at my daughter, the woman who had opened her home when I could not sleep in mine, the woman who brought me flowers with a careful apology, then turned my pain into her humiliation. Both were true. I taught you some of this," I said. Her eyes lifted. "I made love look like fixing. I didn't ask for what I needed. I waited until people noticed, then got hurt when they didn't." "That doesn't excuse me." "No." She nodded slowly. "I'm not moving back. I know. I'm not going to become your emergency number again. I know. If we rebuild this, you have to come when nothing's wrong." Her mouth trembled. "I'm here now." I looked around my imperfect apartment, the loud refrigerator, the blue lamp that was too large, the new steel bowl drying beside the sink. Nothing was broken. No one needed dinner. There was no schedule on the table, no delivery at the door, no missing chair. "Then stay for coffee," I said. Rebecca sat down and let me make only my own cup. She made hers herself. Rebecca opened my refrigerator, found the milk, and stood with the door open. "Where's the sugar?" "In the cabinet above the coffee." She looked at me. "What?" "You know where it is. I put it away on moving day." "That's right." She closed the refrigerator and reached for the cabinet. "I'm trying not to ask you things. You're allowed to ask where sugar is. How do I know which questions are oppressive?" I laughed. She looked offended for half a second, then laughed too. The sound loosened something in the room. We took our coffee to the balcony. Rebecca sat carefully as though the metal chair might test her apology. "I owe Alyssa one too," she said. "Why?" "I made her lie about the seating chart after you left. She didn't. I told her if anyone asked, we had changed your place because you weren't feeling well. She said she wouldn't discuss a guest's health. That sounds like Alyssa. She scared me a little. She wore sensible shoes." "Exactly." Rebecca traced one finger along the rim of her cup. "I'm sorry about the courtyard room. It was a nice room. It looked at recycling bins. Recycling deserves a view, too. I chose it because it was near the service hall. I had known. Hearing her admit it still stung. I told myself it was about your hip, she said. It wasn't. I wanted you close to everything I might need and out of the way of everything I wanted to look perfect. That was cruel. Yes. She did not soften the answer. And the photographs? I didn't put you on the list. I know, I'm sorry. A delivery truck backed up below us, beeping at regular intervals. Did you like the pictures? I asked. Her mouth tightened. Some. Which ones? The ones after the ceremony, when it started raining harder. Neil and I ran outside for about 30 seconds, and the photographer followed us. My hair was already ruined, so I stopped caring. That sounds like the best time to take a picture. It was. She took out her phone and found one. Rebecca and Neil stood beneath the lodge roof with rain blowing around them. Her hair clung to one cheek. Neil's jacket was open, and both of them were laughing. The photograph was imperfect and alive. You look happy, I said. I was. She swiped to another. This one showed the stone fireplace, the flower arch, and guests turned toward Rebecca as she entered. At the edge of the frame stood an empty chair near the back. It's strange, she said. I know that chair wasn't yours. There were extra chairs because we moved indoors, but you see it, every time. She locked the phone. I'm not going to ask you to forgive me today. That's wise. How long do you think it'll take? That is very close to asking. She smiled into her coffee. Before she left, she carried the yellow bowl into the kitchen and placed it in the cabinet I chose. At the door, she paused. Can I call you tomorrow? You can call me whenever you want, even if something goes wrong. Something is always going wrong. Just don't make it the price of talking to me. She nodded. The next day, she called during her lunch hour to tell me a man in the elevator at work had been wearing one brown shoe and one black shoe. The day after that, she sent a photograph of Walter asleep with his head inside one of Neil's sneakers. Then she didn't call for 2 days. I noticed. I did not turn the silence into a test. On Friday, I called her and asked whether she wanted to walk Sunday morning. Is this exercise? She asked. Technically. Can there be breakfast after? Definitely. We walked around the lake at Briar Park, a smaller and less photogenic lake than Cresswell. Ducks crowded the path with the confidence of creatures protected by signs. Rebecca wore the same black exercise clothes and gold earrings she had worn the morning she labeled my emergency boxes. You still don't sweat, I said. I'm sweating internally. That sounds dangerous. We walked one loop, then ate pancakes at a diner where the syrup came in sticky plastic pitchers. Rebecca asked about Willow Court and remembered Anita's apartment number. I asked about work and listened without suggesting what she should say to her difficult client. When the check arrived, we both reached for it. I invited you, I said. You're on a fixed income. So are you. It's just larger. She tried to take the check. I held it beneath my coffee cup. This is aggressive, she said. It's pancakes. Apparently pancakes have become complicated. She let me pay. At her car, she said, We're having dinner Tuesday. You can come if you want. What are you making? Neil is attempting pork chops. Should I bring anything? Her answer took effort. No. Are you sure? Yes. I could bring a salad. Mom. All right. I arrived Tuesday without food. The pork chops were dry. I ate mine without sauce and complimented the potatoes, which were honestly good. Rebecca had placed Frank's photograph on the dining room shelf near the old table. The burn mark remained uncovered. After dinner, Neil stacked the plates. I'll help, I said. You're a guest, Rebecca said. The word made all three of us quiet. Then Neil handed her his plate. She said it, not me. Rebecca took it. I can regret everything. I sat back down. Later, she walked me downstairs. My old suite was no longer empty. Paint samples leaned against the wall. A folded desk sat in the corner, and 2 shelves waited in boxes. What are you doing down here? I thought I might use it as an office. Maybe a guest room, too. Oh, the small word came out before I could stop it. Rebecca watched my face. Are you upset? No. You look upset. I'm surprised. I didn't know if I should change anything. You should. It felt like erasing you. It's a room. You said it was more than rooms when you left. She had me there. I walked to the French doors. The clean squares from my pictures were still visible on the walls. I think part of me expected it to wait, I admitted. For you to come back? Maybe. Do you want to? No. Her face showed relief and hurt at once. I don't want it waiting either, she said. It makes every argument feel like I could solve it by asking you to move back. Could you? No. I turned. She looked frightened by her own answer, then continued. Even if you agreed. I don't want to go backward and call it forgiveness. I touched one of the paint samples. Soft green. This one. That's the one I liked. You were going to choose it anyway. I wanted your opinion. You wanted confirmation. Is there a difference? Usually. She smiled. The room changed over the following weeks. Rebecca painted it green. Neil assembled the desk backward, disassembled it, and accused the instructions of sabotage. The bed frame stayed, but a new mattress arrived. They placed a chair near the garden doors. Rebecca sent me photographs but never asked me to supervise. Her changes were not perfect. Mine weren't either. One evening she called while I was cooking and began telling me about a dinner she had agreed to host for Neil's colleagues. We need to seat 12, and the dining room is... She stopped. What? Nothing. You were going to ask me for something. I was going to ask whether you still had the large white serving platter. I do. Could I borrow it? Yes. And would you? She stopped again. Would I... What? Never mind. Rebecca, she sighed. Would you help me plan the menu? I waited long enough for her to become nervous. Do you want my company or my labor? Both. That's allowed. It is? If you ask and let me say no, can you help me plan the menu? Yes. Can you come early and cook? No. All right. She sounded disappointed. She also survived. We planned the menu for 20 minutes. She ordered most of it from a restaurant and cooked one side dish herself. The dinner went well enough. Neil later reported that one colleague spilled wine on the table, and Rebecca cleaned it up without calling anyone. At Willow Court, I stopped counting how many days I had lived there. The apartment became mine through repetition. My keys landed in the same dish. My coffee sat above the machine. The loud refrigerator developed a softer hum after Donna sent someone to adjust the motor. I still missed Walter. He visited every Saturday with whichever of his owners had time. He learned the elevator but distrusted the third-floor bell. When he left, I found his hair on my rug and didn't vacuum until Monday. The loneliness did not vanish. Some nights were long. I learned that choosing solitude did not make it less lonely. It only made the loneliness honest. I also learned I could call people. I called Jan for dinner. I knocked on Anita's door. I called Rebecca once after a dream about Frank, and she listened without trying to improve it. My apartment still felt unfinished. Pictures leaned against walls because I had not decided where to hang them. The balcony held 2 chairs but no plants. Every time someone suggested a housewarming, I said I was waiting until everything was ready. Donna finally said, "If we waited until our homes were ready, no one would ever see where we live." Anita added, "I need a reason to make potato salad before George does." That settled it. I chose a Saturday afternoon 3 weeks away. Nothing formal. Coffee, cake, sandwiches, whatever people brought. I invited Jan, Anita, Donna, Denise, and Tom, Neil, and Rebecca. Even Marcy. After Denise insisted, she had stopped repeating the lodge story. Rebecca read the invitation over the phone. It says, "Don't bring anything." Yes. People will bring things. I know. Do you have enough chairs? No. I can bring folding ones. Donna has some. What about ice? The machine downstairs makes ice. Not enough for that many people. I smiled. You may bring ice. Thank you. For what? Letting me be useful. The answer was light, but not careless. The morning of the gathering, I woke before 6. By 9, I had rearranged the sandwiches twice and decided the living room looked terrible from every angle. I baked lemon cake in the yellow bowl. The familiar weight rested against my hip while I stirred. The spoon struck the old white scratch, making a deeper sound than the steel bowl had. I did not pretend that history made the cake better. It made making it feel like mine. At 11, Anita arrived in slippers to inspect progress. "You need flowers," she declared. "I have cake." "Cake is not flowers. It's more useful." She pointed a warning finger at me. "Careful." Jan came at noon with flowers. By 1, the apartment smelled like coffee, lemon, and the onions Anita claimed not to have put in her potato salad. Folding chairs lined one wall. Frank's photograph sat beneath the blue lamp. The gathering began at 2. At 1:30, the buzzer sounded. I pressed the button. "Who is it?" "Rebecca." "You're early." "I know. Is something wrong?" There was a brief pause. "No," she said. "Nothing's wrong." I let her in. Rebecca stepped off the elevator carrying 3 bags of ice. She had 1 bag tucked against each hip and the third hugged to her chest. Meltwater darkened the front of her shirt. "You said ice," she said. "I did. I brought ice. I can see that. I didn't bring extra glasses, serving trays, napkins, or the small folding table currently in my trunk. Why is there a folding table in your trunk? In case you changed your mind." "I haven't." "Then it will enjoy the afternoon in the car." She carried the bags into my kitchen and stopped in the middle of the room. "What needs fixing?" The question came out automatically. Her eyes moved from the sandwiches to the coffee maker, from the cake to the chairs lined against the wall. I pointed to the empty chair beside the little round table. "Nothing. Sit with me." She looked suspicious. "The gathering starts in half an hour." "I know. Are you finished?" "No." "What still needs to be done?" "People need to arrive." She glanced at the ice melting against her shirt. "Should I put these somewhere?" "The sink." "Then I am helping." "You completed your assigned task." That felt dangerously formal. She set the ice in the sink and sat. I poured us coffee. My hands were unsteady enough that the cups clicked against their saucers. "You're nervous," she said. "I don't know why. You have 15 people coming to an apartment with 8 chairs. Donna has more downstairs. The sandwiches look nice. They're drying out. They've been out for 10 minutes. I should cover them again." I started to stand. Rebecca put one hand on my wrist. "Sit with me." It was not an order. She used the same words I had used, but gently. I sat. She looked around the living room. The pictures were finally on the walls. Frank's photograph stood beside the blue lamp, and 2 plants occupied the balcony, though one had already begun expressing doubts. "You did all this," she said, "with help. That used to be hard for you to admit." "It still is." She smiled. "I like the curtains. They're crooked." "Neil hung them." "That explains it. He watched a video. He always does his worst work after research. We drank coffee while nothing happened." At 1:55, Anita knocked without waiting for an answer and entered carrying an enormous bowl of potato salad. "There are no onions," she announced. "I can see onions," Rebecca said. Anita placed the bowl on the table. "You must be the daughter." "I must be." "Your mother says you wear exercise clothes without exercising." Rebecca looked at me. "I shared that in confidence. You shared it at coffee. Coffee is confidential." Anita held out her hand. "Anita Alvarez, 307. Your mother has improved this building." "I've lived here 2 months," I said. "She reported the dryer. It was making sparks." "Exactly. Community-minded." Rebecca shook Anita's hand. "I'm Rebecca. I've heard about your muffins. The good ones are Donna's." Donna arrived behind her carrying folding chairs and bran muffins. I heard that. The apartment filled quickly after that. Jan came with another bunch of flowers and immediately disliked Anita in the affectionate way she disliked anyone who spoke as much as she did. Denise and Tom brought wine. George from 215 arrived with cookies arranged on one of my plates, though no one remembered giving it to him. Neil came last with Walter on a leash and Marcy behind him. Walter found me before the door fully opened. He dragged Neil across the room, knocked his shoulder against Donna's folding chairs, and planted both front paws on my stomach. "I wore a clean shirt for you," I told him. He sneezed on it. Neil kissed my cheek. "Happy housewarming. You're late." I had to convince Walter he couldn't drive. Rebecca stepped close to him. He put his arm around her waist and kissed her temple. It was small, unposed, and no one took a picture. Marcy stood near the door holding a potted orchid wrapped in purple paper. "I hope plants are okay," she said. "They are if you don't expect me to keep them alive." "This one came with instructions. Then it's already judging me." She laughed too loudly. Marcy had not seen me since Denise's birthday brunch. Her red glasses were different, but the anxious cheerfulness behind them was the same. "And how's the hip?" she asked. Rebecca answered before I could. Her hip was fine. Marcy looked from her to me. "Oh." "At the anniversary," Rebecca said. Her hip was fine. Neil's hand fell from Rebecca's waist, though he stayed beside her. Marcy adjusted the orchid against her body. I thought it flared up. No. I told people that because I didn't want to say why she left. The conversations around us did not stop dramatically. Anita was still explaining the potato salad to Donna. Tom was opening wine. George asked Jan where to put the cookies. Marcy lowered her voice. "What happened?" Rebecca looked at me. She was asking permission, but the truth belonged to her too. I nodded. "I didn't give Mom a seat at dinner," she said. "I brought her to handle problems, then left her out of the actual celebration. She found out and went home." Marcy's mouth opened slightly. "I thought it was about the courtyard room. I made it about the room because that sounded better for me." Marcy looked at me. "I'm sorry. Thank you." I said some things to Jan. I heard. She corrected me. Jan called from across the room, enthusiastically. Marcy winced. "I should have asked you." "Yes," I said. She looked as if she expected more, perhaps instant comfort. I took the orchid from her hands. "Help me find a place for this where it can't blame me for its death." Relief loosened her shoulders. We put it near the balcony doors. There was no larger confrontation. No one gathered around Rebecca to judge her, and no one congratulated her for telling the truth. Tom asked where the bottle opener was. Donna needed help unfolding a chair. Walter found the potato salad and had to be redirected. The truth entered the room and became part of it. That was enough. We ate sandwiches from paper plates. People balanced cups on window sills and knees. The little apartment held more voices than it had been designed for, and every time someone moved, 3 other people had to adjust. Jan and Anita argued about whether mayonnaise could be trusted outdoors. Denise told Donna the story of Neil's numbered vows, and Neil defended them as structured romance. George's cookies were better than expected, which annoyed everyone. Rebecca sat beside me on the sofa without clearing plates, refilling drinks, or asking whether the ice needed attention. Once she rose when someone said there were no forks. I touched her sleeve. "Kitchen drawer." She stopped. "Right. They can find them. They're adults. That remains to be seen." When I brought out the lemon cake, Denise recognized it immediately. "You made the real one. I wanted to." Her eyes moved toward Rebecca, then back to me. Rebecca said nothing. No wounded joke, no reminder of the cake I had refused to make. She simply took the cake knife from the table and held it out. "Would you like me to cut it?" "Yes, please." "How many pieces?" 15. There are 14 people. Walter will argue the count. She cut the slices evenly. The last one was thinner, so she placed it on her own plate. I exchanged it for mine. "I don't need a big piece," I said. "Neither do I. I baked it. Then you know where the rest is." We stood there holding each other's plates until Denise took the larger piece from both of us. "It's my favorite," she said. That settled it. The glass broke near 4. Tom had set his wine on the windowsill. Marcy turned too quickly while telling a story, struck it with her elbow and sent it onto the floor. The stem snapped. Red wine spread across the rug I had bought 3 weeks earlier. Everyone froze for one short second. My body reacted before my mind did. I started to rise, already thinking salt, towels, keep Walter back, check for glass beneath the chair. Rebecca stood first. "I've got it," she said. "Use cold water," I told her. "I know." "Blot, don't rub. I know, Mom." She did not sound angry. Neil took Walter onto the balcony. Rebecca gathered the large pieces with a folded paper plate, then brought the broom from the kitchen. She asked people to lift their feet, swept beneath the chairs, and pressed a towel against the stain. Marcy hovered beside her. "I'm so sorry. It's a rug," Rebecca said. "It looks new. It has character now." She glanced at me when she said it. I sat back down. When the glass was gone and the stain had faded to a pink shadow, Rebecca washed her hands. She did not rearrange the furniture, inspect the room for further danger, or ask whether I had stain remover. She returned to the sofa. "What was Anita saying about the potato salad?" she asked. Anita leaned forward. "I was saying the problem is people fear dill." The conversation resumed. I looked at my daughter while she listened. There was a wet mark on one knee from the rug and a tiny piece of lemon frosting near her thumb. Something had gone wrong. She had handled it. Then she came back to the good part. By 5, Donna had taken half the chairs downstairs. George left with 3 sandwiches wrapped in a napkin. Denise and Tom carried the empty wine bottles. Marcy hugged me at the door and said she would call before repeating anything about me again. "That is a very low standard," I told her. "I'm starting where I can." Jan and Anita left together, still arguing about mayonnaise. I heard them continue all the way to the elevator. Neil clipped Walter's leash on. "You ready?" he asked Rebecca. She looked toward the kitchen, where plates covered every surface. I thought I'd stay and help. He looked at me. "Do you want help?" The question had changed. No one was assuming that mess created obligation in either direction. "Yes," I said, "but not from both of you." Neil saluted. I've never been dismissed so lovingly. He kissed my cheek, then Rebecca's. At the door, he turned back. "Coffee Thursday? Morning? Unless you've replaced me." Anita drinks tea. Good. Walter planted all 4 feet and refused to leave. Neil coaxed him into the hall with a piece of leftover sandwich. Rebecca and I stood in the quiet after the elevator doors closed. The apartment was a wreck. Coffee rings marked the table. Crumbs covered the floor. The orchid leaned toward the window like it was trying to escape. One lemon slice remained beneath a sheet of plastic wrap. Rebecca picked up 2 plates. "Wash or dry?" "I'll wash." She filled the sink without asking how much soap to use. I dried and returned things to their cabinets. When we reached the yellow mixing bowl, she held it beneath the water. "I was going to keep this," she said. "I know. You do. You didn't accidentally miss a label that said, 'Take myself.'" She smiled guiltily. "I thought if I kept something important, you'd have to come back for it. Why didn't you say that when you brought it here?" It made the apology sound manipulative. It was manipulative. I know. She washed the bowl carefully, following the curve of the old white scratch with the sponge. "I didn't use it," she said. "The salad?" "I put the salad in it, but I didn't bake with it." "I don't know why. You could. It felt like yours." She handed it to me. I dried the outside and placed it in the cabinet beside the steel bowl. "They can both be mine," I said. Rebecca looked at the 2 bowls. "I'm trying to understand how that works. So am I." We finished the dishes. She swept the crumbs without turning the task into a demonstration. I folded the damp towel over the oven handle. On the little table sat the spare apartment key. I had placed it there that morning, then changed my mind twice. Rebecca noticed it. "Did someone leave a key? It's for you. She didn't touch it." "Are you sure?" "No." "That's reassuring. It isn't permission to walk in. I'll knock. Even if you know I'm home, I'll knock. Even if something goes wrong." Her eyes met mine, especially then. I slid the key across the table. She closed her hand around it. We carried coffee to the balcony. Evening had cooled the metal chairs, and traffic moved below us in soft bursts. My new plant leaned against the railing. Rebecca adjusted it, then stopped herself from moving the pot. "Is this where you want it?" For now. She left it there. For a while, we sat without talking. Silence no longer sounded like the elevator cables or someone dropping a bowling ball upstairs. It sounded like my daughter breathing beside me. "You know," Rebecca said, "your apartment is still too small. I know, the refrigerator is loud, less than before, and that table is awful. It has Ohio." She smiled. Then she told me about a woman at work who signed every email with 3 exclamation points, and I told her Donna had started hiding the bran muffins beneath a cloth so Anita would stop insulting them. Nothing important happened. No cake leaned, no rain changed a plan. No one needed a cufflink, a repair number, a serving platter, or a chair added at the last minute. When Rebecca finally stood to leave, she kissed the top of my head. "Call me tomorrow?" she asked. "I might." "I'll call you if you don't." "That sounds like a threat. It's a boundary. Don't get carried away." She laughed and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she held up the spare key. Then she knocked on the inside of my door. I laughed so hard she had to wait for me to stop before I could let her out.